I'll call this to order pursuant to the Governor Baker. I'm going to have to go off the recording because it won't save to my, I'll get it saved from the, I'll get the disc from the town manager's office and upload it that way. Because it is being recorded by cable access. That is the record. So there's nothing in the meeting, open meeting law about us recording it. It is being recorded by cable access. Call to order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 20, 2020 order suspended certain provisions of the open meeting law. General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town Council is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southridge Cable Access Channel 192. It's always being cable access 192. We'll post a record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.ma.us as soon as possible. A roll call vote will be required for all agenda items. Let me get my flag up for you all. Okay, Councilor Adams, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Adams, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
You got it. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Adams. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilor Adams.
Present.
Councilor Catrona.
Present.
Councilor Daniel.
Present.
Councilor Jovan.
Present.
Councilor Lazo.
Absent.
Councilor Manna. Present. Councilor Marquetti.
Present.
Councilor Nash.
Present.
And Councilor Steves.
Present.
Thank you. All members, one absent. Citizens Forum. Is there anybody that wishes to address the Town Council on any item that's not on the agenda this evening? Any resident? Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Item 4, vote to adopt the fiscal year 2021 Town of Southbridge General Fund operating budget per the attached voting document in the amount of $55,455,968 to be funded as follows. Raise and appropriate $53,955,586. Transfers from other available funds. Sale of street list books, $500. Cable operating account, $204,228. Debt service reserve, $900,000. Perpetual care interest, $2,000. Access road debt service, $309,165. Landfill reimbursement fund, $75,397. Sale of lots and graves, $5,000. Subtotal transfers from other available funds, $1,496,290. Other transfers, Bay Path bond premium, $4,092. Subtotal other transfers for $4,092. Total general fund budget, $55,455,968. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I got a motion by Councilor Manor, second by Councilor Daniels. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you guys all are aware, this is a result of the work that I did with all my department heads to build a budget. The budget was brought forward to the Town Council as part of my town manager's presentation in March. We had meetings of all the various subcommittees of the town council. We discussed in detail every specific line of this budget, had a lot of great conversation about each line. As I talked about earlier, we made some adjustments from my original recommended budget to the budget you're looking at today to reflect some of the potential revenue loss in the coronavirus, and did that. Attached with this document, you're going to have your voting document to go through. This is really, all of this information has been reviewed by town council, has been voted on by every subcommittee, and this is the end recommendation tonight of a lot of hard work by everybody, including the town councils with their review. So I look forward to any potential discussion. As we go through this, the only one item that kind of wasn't addressed in its final form was the question of the special article about roads. If we're going to fund $100,000, $200,000 proposed in this, or some other variation, but everything else was clearly decided upon, and that was the only item kind of we left for future discussion. I believe, again, and I'll say it clearly, as I said in the public hearings, it's a very fiscally conservative budget. It's responsible. Not a lot of extra in it because, frankly, we had to go back and cut what little there was. Department heads do, for the public, they should be aware that this is what I call fiscally conservative. There's not a lot of fat in this budget. Really, what this reflects for the most part is costs that are contractual that went up. Things like the union contracts, things like healthcare costs and pension costs, and things that we just have to pay. But other than that, other than the road account we talked about, there's really not much in here anymore after we went through it again and cut out what little additions we made. So I think it's a responsible budget to bring forward. As we discussed about it, this could be an ever-changing budget, given that we don't know a lot of information from the state yet. So I think this is a good opening budget. I think it meets the needs of the community. And as I said in the public hearing, again, I think really what's important is that on a regular budget, as we move forward, we have to reevaluate, what state aid might be, what's happening in terms of our local receipts. All of that's going to have to be evaluated on a pretty constant basis until we get through this coronavirus and see what the impact it has on our community. As you said, Mr. Chairman, other towns have been able to wait based upon, town meeting, form of government and things, but this is what our charter calls for. The finance director and I have spent a lot of time working on this budget. I want to give a tremendous amount of credit to the finance director who, spends a lot of hours with me in each individual department head talking about the needs of the department, and then spends a great deal of time with me and department heads talking with the town councilors at those budget hearings that are long into the night, and councilors get deep and answer questions. So kudos to our finance director. This is, I think, one of the biggest parts of her job is to work with me to put together a budget, and she does it in a very professional manner. So with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you can move on with going through the voting document. Your mic's not on, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just for the public and for fellow councilors. According to Southridge Town Hall, Town Home Rule Charter, Section 6, Adoption of the Budget, under Section 10-6-1, the Town Council shall adopt the budget with or without amendments on or before the end of the 11th month of the fiscal year currently ended. And amended in the budget, it may by majority vote of the full council, i.e. a minimum of 5 votes, delete or decrease any programs or amounts except expenditures required by law or for debt service. It may by 2/3 vote of the full council, i.e. a minimum of 6 votes, increase any amount in or the total of the proposed budget. Adoption of the budget shall constitute an appropriation of the amount specified therein as expenditures from the funds indicated. Okay, just so everybody understands. So it would require 5 votes to increase and 6 votes to decrease, because the language is clear that it says full membership. So that would be full membership, even though we have one councilor that is not here this evening. Okay, voting document revised Town of Southridge fiscal year 2021 town manager's budget. I think in the past, Councilor Steves, you could make sure I do this correctly. Just go by the section and ask for any holds? Is that how you have done it in the past? I'm just trying to recall. Is that correct? Yeah, I see you shaking your head. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, budget book section.
Mr. Chairman,
General go. Yep. Go ahead.
before we do that, can I amend it, or do you want to wait till after we're done going through the doc?
What we do is we go through the documents. If you have anything that you want to amend, I think you say a hold on that.
But what if I want to amend the whole? But what if I want to amend the whole budget, the total? Do you want me to wait to the end or do that now?
I would have to say you have to wait because I think we have to go through and list everything first, and then we're not trying to take a vote on the entire budget. It's just if you have specific items that you wish to have a hold on, and then we go back and amend them, if I'm correct. I mean, I will certainly entertain what your thought process is so that we can understand where you're coming from as far as an amendment before we go through all this. So what is your thought process on that?
Well, I mean, I've seen some of the comments on social media about counselors wanting to make cuts, but yet they want services. I mean, they want to cut the budget, but yet they demand services. But the problem this year is, with this emergency, it's a lot of people are out of work, a lot of businesses are hurting, and I just don't think, I'm not sure Southridge can afford all the services that these town leaders want to provide. And there may be no way to pay for these services. So, I mean, unless you want to adopt a different type of tax format, I would think that we need to have some kind of freeze on this budget. To me, this is just more tax and spend. Let the tax and spend crowd worry about where they're going to get the money from. So I would like to make an amendment that we freeze the current budget at last year's level. Last year, if you want a total, last year's budget was $54,061,445, and that was the total general fund budget. And with the transfers that you're making this year, that would raise and appropriate $51,963,873. So that's my amendment to freeze the current budget at last year's level.
Okay. Is there a second to that right now?
I would second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Discussion on that? Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. I cannot see our town affording to lose any of the services that we have. Fire department, police department, DPW. If you're looking to make some cuts, maybe we can make some cuts within. Maybe this needs to be looked at another time, but I am not in favor of freezing the budget to last year's total. We can't do that. I mean, we got the 2% increase on the raises for the unions. I mean, there's certain things in their contract. I mean, you want to look at making cuts. I don't say make cuts at like the DPW, police department, fire department. Don't even touch those. I want to make cuts, make them from within. Where can we cut the fat within the town hall? I'm not in favor of freezing the budget. I'm not in favor of reducing the services to the town. And that's my take on that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Steves?
I think Councilor Controna was up first.
Okay. I'm sorry, Councilor Controna, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Gus. It's not that I'm not against this budget. I'm just against spending the money right now that we don't have. The checkbook doesn't have it. The money is not there until we know what the shortfall is going to be due to this pandemic. I like Councilor Marchetti's idea. It's as I've said in the past, let's put a freeze on the spending until the pandemic is over and we know what the funds are coming in. We were elected to keep the tax rate down. We were elected to be responsible to the taxpayers. We were elected to be the voice of the taxpayers. It's my belief that voting for this budget tonight is irresponsible as a counselor, and to spend money that we don't have and that we don't know we're going to have. Again, I'm being repetitive. It's just not, it's not responsible government. I think if an emergency comes up, yes, if we need an ambulance, we need a police car, or put the money to the stabilization fund right now. And we take the money out. As a council, we vote on it. I'll wait and I'll yield to other councilors for now, but I certainly will come back to this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Manna?
I think Councilor
And this
Steve.
discussion is on the amendment. Oh, yeah, Councilor Steves, go ahead. I apologize. Councilor Steves, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Manna. I understand why you're concerned about this, both Councilor McKinney and Councilor Catrona, but because I agree that we have a situation where we don't know where we fiscally stand in the long term. However, I want to point out that we kind of talked about this a little bit in the public hearing just a few minutes ago about what you're doing right now is you're talking about cutting about $1.3 million out of our proposed budget. And what, I mean, and the numbers we were throwing around, the number I was throwing around specifically was 758,000 and change. I mean, could you imagine what kind of impact 1.3 million would have on our budget? I mean, with, as Councilor Manna mentioned, all of the contractual increases, all the various hikes that we have to pay for, and the increases that we're going to need for a variety of different things. I understand that we are here, obviously, to be fiscally responsible. And I don't like the idea of having things constantly get more expensive. It would be nice if they went down. They're probably not going to, but it'd be nice if they did. I think the concern really here, though, is that one element is that if we set the budget with what we have on our voting document at the moment, the 55 million and change, we can cut it later if we need to. However, it's a lot harder to raise it if we have extra money to play with. And chances are we're not likely to get a whole lot of it. And I would not be surprised that we have a discussion very similar to this, say in mid-July or something, where we finally get state figures and we probably do end up having to cut it. That's one of the reasons why we were talking in the subcommittee hearings and the budget discussions about putting a ton of money aside in fiscal and free cash that we would have normally put into our capital plan. But so we've got a bunch of other money there to play with if we really need it. But fiscal responsibility is important, but we also are here to make sure that we can fund the services that the community needs. All of the various things, the roads, the schools, the sewers, the water, all this stuff that we all depend on. And we can't, unfortunately, do that without the money. It's kind of a catch-22. You know, we're definitely caught even more so than usually in this situation. And, you know, we're throwing around some numbers. We're definitely going to need to look at some specific cuts. But honestly, if you guys have some, Councilor Catrona and Councilor Marchetti, if you have specific line areas where you think they should be cut, by all means, throw them around, and we'll think about them. But I think that such a drastic cut is not beneficial to our community as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you, Councilor Steves. So I just want to touch on one thing. You know, being fiscally responsible is doing things appropriately. And I'm going to say it again, like we can go back 12, 15 years when nothing was raised. Property taxes weren't raised, water and sewer rates weren't raised because we had all this extra money. And then all of a sudden, boom, now we don't have the extra money. And guess what? Now your property taxes have doubled and tripled. So have your water and sewer rates. And it's like, it's a huge shock. So we are being fiscally responsible when we appropriate things correctly, when the way we should be doing things. We have an issue in this town with economic development. We don't have the businesses coming to town like we should. We have a lot of, and I have nothing against nonprofits. We have a lot of nonprofits in this town. They don't pay any type of taxes. So, you know, we have businesses that we want to keep, and we need to attract more businesses. So a lot of the times, the taxes, the property taxes are still on the burden of the residents, the citizens, the homeowners, the property owners, and not more so the businesses, where like you see in the larger cities, like you go out to Boston, Waltham, and those places where the burden of a lot of that goes on to the big business owners. But I can say one thing, I wasn't elected to say, I'm going to keep your taxes down. Not one time in those 7 years I've been on this town council have I ever said, I'm going to not raise your taxes, because that would be irresponsible of me to say. I mean, it's just, I say cut the fat within. Let's take a deep, hard look on where we can cut within. Who don't we need? What is being wasted? I'm not in favor of cutting anything from our emergency services or even the school at this point, So I don't agree with Councilor Marquetti and Councilor Catrona on this. I respectfully disagree with them, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Councilor Marquetti.
If somebody else wants to talk first, I'll yield, because, I'd like to let all the councilors talk before I come back and talk again. But if no one else wants to talk, then I'd like to respond.
Okay. All right, I'll circle back to you. Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can appreciate the overall sentiment that has been presented with this proposed amendment. I would look at a responsible avenue to have been making absolutely certain that anyone proposing or standing on this tonight would have approached each individual department head along with the town manager and the finance director to make sure they would understand very clearly what the impact of this sort of motion would do if it were indeed to be accepted by council. That would be responsible. I think the motion and second are irresponsible as a result. This council tonight has worked either in whole or in pieces at subcommittee to vet every single line item. If there are specific cuts, as I think Councilor Steves had said, we should do what we have done in the past, and when we go through the voting document, make those recommendations. Still, I find it irresponsible if these conversations haven't been had with the town manager, finance director, and with the department heads who, if this were to pass, would be faced with quite a challenge. I respect that everybody wants to be responsible with taxes. We all care about the tax rate. We all care about the economic situation and impact. None of us up here needs to be reminded what our oath was or what our obligation is as a council. So with that, I'll stop for now, but thank you. I don't support this, not even an iota.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti, then I'll go to Karen because I know she had a point to say. So,
Well, yeah,
Councilor Marquetti?
I would like to respond, because what I said was, first of all, yeah, you're going to have to fund the union contracts. I didn't say you couldn't fund the union contracts. Of course, you're going to have to fund that. But I also said that in going back, freezing the budget, it's up to the town manager and the people who work on the budget. It's up to them to decide how they're going to do this. It's not up to me to go line by line, although I have to say I did go line by line, and I did make some offers for cuts, and no one wanted to do it. And we also talked about freezing it, and now I'm making the amendment to freeze it. If councilors say it's irresponsible because we have to pay for services. This year, it's irresponsible to dump this on the taxpayers because we can't afford to pay for the services this year. A lot of people are laid off. A lot of businesses are closed down. They need a break this year. And that's why I'm proposing this budget freeze. And as far as I'm concerned, the town manager, the town leaders who want to provide all these services, it's their responsibility to worry about where they're going to cut the money. Yes, you're going to have to fund the union contracts. I agree. You're going to have to fund the fire and the police, but the rest of it, I propose a freeze. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to make one generic comment on this. We just had a public hearing, and these two councilors didn't state at that public hearing
Because
Hey,
we weren't
Mr. Town
voting.
Manager,
We weren't voting on it.
but it's a public, Councilman Marquetti, I have the floor right now. I have the floor.
Yeah, I know,
With
and
all due
you're the
respect,
chairman, you're
I
supposed
gave
to
you
run
time.
meetings, not come up with an opinion here. You only run meetings, not voice an opinion.
I have the right to have my opinion, Mr. Council Marquetti. And I would just state for the record that we just had a public hearing, and I'll say generically, not one point was brought up to the town officials that would say, hey, if we were to freeze our budget, what impact would that have on the town of Southridge? I just find that unbelievable. Ms. Tarnois?
Yes, thank you. What I just wanted to point out is some of the fixed costs that we have in our budget. We have our insurances that are going up 181,000. That includes the health and the life and the liability, workers' comp, unemployment. We have retirement that's going up $248,000. We also have a Bay Path assessment that's going up 172. So I just wanted to point out some of those things that were mentioned, we don't have control over. So if we were to put a freeze on the budget, we're gonna have to bring the budget up by at least those amounts to cover that. Plus, potentially the school budget or whatever. So there would definitely be deep cuts that would need to be made. And I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Adams.
Chair, through you, I was going to ask Karen that same question. How much money are we having to afford this year with a 2% pay increase, health insurance, and all that other stuff? So basically, we have to fund that. That's a requirement. And then all of a sudden, now we're going to have to take probably massive layoffs or stop the infrastructure projects that you guys wanted. That's going to stop too. We've done this for 2-3 months now. And not once have we brought this up. I'm sorry, we have brought this up, but I'm not in favor of taking a dull knife to our budget, slashing everything all at the last possible second, and then saying, look what we did to the taxpayers. Taxpayers didn't vote for me to cut their taxes. They asked me to do the right thing by our town. And I think we have by doing our subcommittee meetings, listening to the financial director, the town manager, and I've been asking those questions to them. And they're very simple. You walk in their offices and have a conversation, or you pick up the phone, and you have a conversation. But this is ridiculous, the fact that you would come in here, and I respect the fact that I understand why you're trying to do it, but I'm not in support of this, no way, shape, or form. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Manor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I just want to, unless I misunderstood what Councilor Marquetti was saying with regards to the budget and it being up to the town manager and the department heads to decide on what they want for the budget. It's not up to them. It's up to them to present us the budget, and it's up to the town councilors. So unless I misunderstood them, I follow suit with Councilor Nash and Councilor Adams and everyone else who disagrees on this. I don't support it whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Steves, we're talking about the amendment. So the amendment, Councilor Steves, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To address Councilor Marquetti's and Councilor Catrona's points, that if, as I mentioned kind of earlier, if we do need to end up having to make cuts, I would like to think that one of the things that we probably should do is talk to our employees and see if they would be willing to forego the raises for the year. That would make a significant assistance while still keeping people employed. And I think that's really important because we need the people to do the things that we need the town to get done. I mean, and all of us are citizens. We're all taxpayers. We all understand when we look at the bills, nobody likes paying tax bills, but it's also what you pay for to be a participant in civilization. And I think that if we can talk to our staff people and the union specifically and see and realize that going forward, if we really do need to do this, it might be an appropriate conversation to have with them. I don't know if the manager or Karen has thought about talking to the unions about this and whatnot, and I realize it's a hard conversation to have, and nobody likes to see their pay get cut. But you're right, Councilor McKinney, that there are a lot of people who are out of work and jobs that are businesses that are closed, and people who are in fact taking pay cuts. So, and there are a lot of people on our payrolls who are making significantly over median wage, or even for our town, never mind anywhere else. So, I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. Councilor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just to speak to this one more time. I have brought this up several times at several meetings. So to say that this has come up at the last minute, how much more can I bring this up? A motion was made by a councilor at what I feel was an appropriate time. It may be right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't have the time to spend in town hall like others might, day and night. I'm not there. I don't have that time. So for a councilor to say that we should be speaking with the individual, no, we should be speaking with the town manager, and the town manager should be speaking with the department heads. I feel strongly, as I stated 3 meetings ago, and in subcommittee meetings, that we should freeze this budget during the pandemic. I agree that there are things that need to be funded. I don't dispute that. And I'm not against a police cruiser. I'm not against funding some of the capital items, just not right now, as I stated earlier. When I said that earlier, that this is irresponsible, we're spending the taxpayers' money. There's no money. We don't know what money is in that checkbook right now. So how can we be spending? We have over $500,000 in a blight account right now that should be taken out of there and put towards roads. Folks, this is difficult times. I get it for a lot of people. And I think that we all need to think before we vote tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Very simply, I think that this amendment at this point and the nature of the amendment is ill-advised. We don't know how much we need to cut because we have no idea, as was discussed earlier this evening, about what the general government, the state government is going to make in terms of cuts to aid to us. We don't know what resources we have. And I think to pick a number, which is a large number, and suggest that, I think is ill-advised at this point. I certainly understand the sentiment of the councilors, and I admire them for bringing that up. It's a very controversial position. So for them to bring it up, I think is okay. But I think the amendment is ill-advised. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Mrs. Clements, did you want to address this agenda item? You have, this is 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. First up, I want to applaud the counselors who are trying to use what they can to their information and their concern for the taxpayers. I don't think they should be in any way chastised for that. I think this is the appropriate venue for them to vent and to explain and to be public to the public. That's what open meeting law is all about. And I realize there have been a lot of meetings. I've attended some on this and in many previous meetings. So to bring it up here and to try to discuss it here is completely appropriate. And I need to point this out as my own experience. The hearing is a public hearing. It's either run by a town manager or it's run by the chair, is what happened here. Public meeting a public hearing, whether one counselor attends or not, as in water hearings or any of the others, they don't have to attend. It was really nice that you all did attend because the people see that you care. There have been many councils where 1 or 2 people would show up to public hearings, and then they would show up to the main meeting. So I just want to point that out because, again, yeah, they could have asked questions, but a public hearing is to get everything out to the public. A council meeting is to get the concerns in discussion and question and answer format. So maybe right now, getting a number and trying to understand where the bottom line of this budget could be is very difficult to the concept of it. I understand. I agree on some points on that. I also believe that the town manager should have come up with an alternate budget and provided alternate ideas in order to reduce the budget further and what cuts might have to be made should things go even worse than they are. So I feel that that was not done, and that should have been done in this time. Many communities are freezing, they're freezing spending, and they are coming up with furlough programs and wherever the cuts need to be. I don't see one idea of where the cuts need to be. Nothing has come to the public, in my opinion. Yes, you'll handle it when the time comes, should it be as bad as it may be. But how about planning for the future is essential to do? It was said earlier that we can't predict the future. We don't plan for 6 years out. Very bad business concept to fall under. So anyway, I applaud you both, Councilor Marchetti and Councilor Catrona, for trying and for doing the right thing in debate in public. And Councilor Daniels, you agreed with their concept of being here, and that is it's very open-minded and it's the right thing. So thank you for listening to me tonight. I certainly hope when it gets to a lot of the free cash items, we act a little more, act on our behalf a little more conservatively. Thank you.
Thank you. The previous speaker's point, I certainly welcome open debate. I would have just liked to have the question maybe asked at the public hearing, if that was going to be something that could be discussed at that. What is the implication of that? I certainly have no desire to quell anybody's debate. And if I'm opining, that is fine. I'll step down as the chair at this right now and defer to Councilor Daniels so that I can speak as a councilor, because I do have a right to discuss items at the meeting. There's no doubt that I think during this budget, we talked about cutting budgets, but we'll talk about the amendment right now. The amendment, is there any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, could you, Madam Secretary, could you state what the amendment was exactly, please, if you have it? If not, we will have the counselor make sure it's clear and articulated.
Yeah, let me just pull that up. I had that it was a motion to freeze the budget to last year's amount of 54,600,000. I might have got the amount wrong, so I might just need the
I'm
amount.
happy to reply to
Yeah, if you want to.
Yep.
my amendment
State
was
your motion, please.
My amendment was to freeze the current budget at last year's level. That was my amendment. I went on to explain what last year's level was. I don't know if you need that in there, but if you need it in there, be happy to give you those numbers.
So you want it freeze?
My amendment was to freeze the current budget at last year's level. Last year's budget was 54,061,445. And that was for the total general fund budget. And with the transfers that you're making this year, we would raise and appropriate 51,963,873. That was my amendment. But the crux of the amendment was to freeze the current budget at last year's level.
So what is your amendment? Is it to just freeze at last year's? I want to make sure that we're clear on what your amendment is.
My amendment is to freeze the current budget at last year's level.
Fiscal year 2020, and there was a second. Any further discussion? Councilor Steves.
Yeah, just for the sake of, since we are talking about actually voting on a number, I do believe that the amendment should include the numbers that you stated, Councilor Marchetti, just for clarity. Just
that's fine.
Last year's number of 54,006,061,445.
061,445.
Okay, I got that.
Yeah. All right. Is there any further discussion? We are just voting on the amendment at this time. Roll call.
Councilor Adams?
No.
Councilor Catrona?
Yes.
Councilor Daniel?
No.
Councilor Jovan?
No.
Councilor Manna?
No.
Councilor Marchetti?
Yes.
Councilor Nash?
No.
And Counselor Steves.
No.
Motion fails. Now I'll go through the voting document. If anybody has a specific line item they want to discuss or amend, let me know. General government, town council, raise and appropriate, budget appropriation vote, 20,550, raise and appropriate 20,550. Town manager, budget appropriation vote, 304,163, raise and appropriate 304,163. Town accountant, 177,334, raise and appropriate 177,334. Do you want me to go through both, or is it just fine to do the raise and appropriate, Karen? How do you usually do it? Just the raise and appropriate, or do you have to read both?
Nope, if you can just read the budget appropriation vote in the left column, that'd be fine.
All right, thank you. Assessors 213,406. Town treasurer collective 408,082. Town attorney 127,000. Town clerk 189,146. Elections registration 88,792. Planning board 79,378. Economic development 68,959. Cable TV advisory committee 204,228. General government program accounts, administration 36,000. Audit fees 15,000. Copy machine cost, telephone 45,000. My lines are just postage 43,000. Net. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to backtrack for a second. Elections and registration. The document that I have, it says 86,792, not 88.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. 86,000.
Yeah, 86.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. 86,000. Thank you. I'm just couldn't really tell her. Natural gas 80,000. Heat and fuel 35,000. Property management miscellaneous 12,000. Reserve for property repair, maintenance and demo 50,000. Fuel and lubricants 135,000. Subtotal for administration. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say postage.
Yeah, I said postage of 43,000. I think is it 43,000? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Subtotal administration 451,000. Any questions on those? Data processing 200,960. Council reserve 100,000. Contributory retirement 3,875,330. Personnel, sick vacation leave buyback 19,995. Recruitment and processing 10,000. Employer Medicare tax 150,000. Subtotal personnel $179,995. Group health insurance $4,258,414. General insurance, workers' compensation $255,000. Police and fire indemnification $58,300. Unemployment compensation $17,000. Property and liability insurance $360,000. Deductible liability $5,500. For subtotal and general insurance of $695,800. Boards, committees, commissions. Central Mass Regional Planning $4,908. Conservation Commission $1,000. Zoning Board of Appeals $250. Historical Commission $500. Licensing Board $500. Subtotal boards and committees $7,100. Debt service, principal on debt $1,778,539. Is that correct? Is that an 8? I can't really. Yeah. Okay. Interest on long-term debt $799,749. Interest on short-term debt, $5,000. Issuance expense, $1,000, for a total of $2,584 and $2,584, $2,584,288. Reevaluation services, $35,000. Ambulance billing services, $33,000. Medicaid billing, $20,000. Other post-employment benefits, $4,100. Roadway improvement fund, $200,000. Subtotal special accounts, $292,100. Miscellaneous raised on until November vote required for a general government total of $14,524,083. Any questions on general government? Okay.
I do have,
Public
I just want
safety.
to have a comment, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
We've gone through this budget since March, and we've all made suggestions on cuts. So to say that we've never said anything about cuts this whole time, it's not true. You know, I've talked about the town manager's office. Why we have 2 HR specialists in there is beyond me. I've talked about cutting out the economic development director because it's my belief when the economy turns around, it's going to turn around whether we have an economic development director or not. It's going to turn around. I've talked about a lot of things cutting out of this budget. If you want me to go through it again, I don't think you're going to want me to go through this every line item again and dig out the budget. But I just want to make it clear that we have talked about cutting this budget, and it's gone nowhere. So thank you.
I think we have all talked about cutting budget. I respect your comment, Councilor Marquetti. I think town manager had pointed out the road improvement fund of $200,000. I'm all for the road improvement funds. If we had to cut or move money, that would be something that I would say that you move or cut and move to stabilization if you had to. And then once you get a clearer picture of the finances, then you move it back and you target specific project. I understand the point about putting it into the budget, but to the point of if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. So I don't know if the town manager's recommendation was to change that. You said we may have further conversation. I think that might be, is this the time to discuss that at this point? Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is a discussion that we did have. So we were talking about, myself and the finance director, putting money aside into stabilization to protect us against a revenue loss. And I've said it over and over again tonight that we don't know what that number is. If we wanted to take some part or all of that $200,000 and put in stabilization, the town council at some future time could decide to fund the project if the revenue loss isn't as bad as we thought. But you know, we threw that up, myself and the finance director threw that up because it's a significant dollar amount. As you know, when we were reevaluating the budget from the one I proposed, we did evaluate the complete budget. All the town councilors went through every line item. Every councilor had a chance to make some cuts, and to Councilor Marquetti's credit and Councilor Catrona, they did offer some cuts that just weren't voted on. The majority did not vote for those cuts. This is the one item I said at the beginning of this meeting that we decided and we talked about it and we said, this is something we got to consider when we do the budget document. You know, this was, if you recall, this was kind of put into a package of road improvement projects to the tune of about $480,000. We were going to take money from other sources, combine it, and do certain roads. I don't believe that it would hurt the town to put it aside in enterprise in case we have a problem and then make the move back to this fund in the future. But we kind of left that up to council to see what the majority of the council wanted to do. But this is a significant amount of money, either $100,000 or $200,000 that could protect us to some degree against revenue loss. You know, the council can go either way on this, but this is one of the few areas that is a significant increase over last year's budget. And I'm talking about $100,000 increase. So I'll leave it to council's judgment. Right now, it's recommended in the budget, but even in that recommendation, myself and the finance director wanted council to weigh in on the importance of that decision. And the reason we did is because, as you know, Mr. Chairman, all of us agree that road improvement is crucial in town. And I know that citizens think it's crucial in town. The only reason to even significantly think about this is because of the coronavirus. If this wasn't a situation with the lost revenue of coronavirus, I know council would be 180,000% in favor of this. This is just, do we want to be financially protective, I guess is the way I would describe it. But so my recommendation that, because we put it in, my recommendation was to put it in, but I would have complete respect either way of what council decides to do on this particular issue.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question with regards to the roadway improvement fund and the $500,000 that we have sitting in blight.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I going to find that $500,000 sitting in blight? In the inspections or the health department?
Yeah, no, that I believe, and I'll let Karen answer it. I think that's a separate article or fund that it's in. So you're not going to see it in this. This is money. That was money that was already appropriated into that special article. Again, I think I talked earlier, they were talking about taking $100,000 out of that fund to fund the animal kennel, the animal shelter. We're taking $100,000 out of there. The council could vote at its next meeting if it so chooses to do so, and we would be happy to provide a motion for that to take the $100,000 out of that account and put it into the animal reserve account. It's whenever the chairman wants to put it on the agenda, we'll take care of that item. There's at least 200,000 of funded projects that Andy's talking about that we have to do in that account in terms of ripping down buildings, but that still leaves more money in there. The question is, council has always strongly supported, looking at the future and ripping down buildings to improve the look of the town. So, you could take it all now, but at some point you're going to want to put money back in to rip down more buildings. So that's this council, sure. The question.
And I totally get it, Mr. Town Manager. But the $500,000 has been sitting there for a long time. And if we're not using it, and okay, so you're going to take $100,000 out of that and you're going to put it into the animal shelter. That's what's going to be discussed. It's up to the council to do that, not up to you, Mr. Town Manager. Right. Then there's $400,000 left that sits in there. I want to know exactly what Andy has on his books for the town blight being torn down. And if there's like $200,000 extra or $300,000 extra in that account, then I say we move some more over to the roadway improvement fund, because you know what? That money's just been sitting there. And by the time this COVID thing, if it's ever even over, our roads are going to be in such bad shape, we're not going to even have enough in our roadway improvement fund to make any repairs to the roads. So this is another reason you just can't keep putting off. It's not a Band-Aid situation, the roads. This is stitches.
So through you, Mr. Chairman.
It doesn't need to be a debate. I just want to give my opinion.
I wasn't going to debate you. I was just going to try to answer your question. So Inspectional Service Director Pelletier is on this call, obviously. In the conversation I had with him, he believes that in the fiscal year 2021, he'll spend about 200 of that 500. And if we take 100 out for the animal shelter, that's 3. So in theory, there is $200,000. If the council wanted to take all the remaining money out and put it towards roads, that could be an option of council.
So I'm going to follow up to that, if I may, Mr. Chair. What he believes and what is actual are two totally different things. So I believe I'm going to spend $1 million on roads, but you know what? It's actually going to cost me $3 million to repair the roads. I believe it's going to cost me. So it's not an I believe thing, it's an actual thing. What's there on the books being ready to be torn down, and what's the actual number? We just can't guess at these and believe that we're going to need this much. We need to know. It's been sitting in there way too long. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. first of all, I just want to say that I agree with what Councilor Manna just said. And I also want to point out that with the $200,000 that we're throwing into the road fund is, while it is a little extra from what we have been talking about with the COVID-19 issues, I think it's long overdue money that our roads, they're terrible, as everybody knows. And I think we talked about this repeatedly, how I don't know exactly what the figure is, but it's millions of dollars in overdue road projects that need these roads that need to get done, that everybody uses them in our community. It's one of those things where even that $200,000, it'll help a little bit. In the long run, we're going to end up needing to seriously talk about doing some sort of road bonding. And that's going to be a huge nut to crack. And I don't know if that would pass at the ballot, but it's necessary. And if we don't do it, the roads are just going to get worse, because even that $200,000 is patching stuff and maybe fixing some of the small, like I know proposals to use the money that, as the manager mentioned a little while ago, to do a couple of specific roads, namely Prospect Street and Brentwood, if I remember correctly. And those Brentwood's pretty bad. But you know, there's so many roads around that need to get work done. And as Heather has mentioned in several occasions, she's got several projects that are in the running to do various things in town that are all in some stage of planning or engineering or coming down the pike in the very near future, that all need to get done. They're all kind of going to get done at once. And there's still a lot more work to get done. So I'm in favor of leaving this here too. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions about the roadway improvement? I just threw that out as not a possibility to cut. I know the town manager had brought it up before, but Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just this is something that was brought up when we were at the subcommittee level about this $200,000, especially if we had to make cuts based on receipts that were coming in this coming fiscal year. But knowing that we had money within the blighted properties funds or the account, also capital projects that haven't been touched for quite some time, that they're sitting in accounts doing nothing, that possibly we could take from to equal out to that $200,000. With some research, I think we can be able to put that $200,000 to good use back into that fund, and then take this $200,000 out.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yeah.
Town manager?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, because Councilor Adam brings up a point. So if you remember in the town manager's presentation, we were going to take $200,000 out of the transfer from sale of town-owned properties, combine that with $94,780 of money that has not yet been spent from last year's $100,000, and then take the additional $200,000 of money we're appropriating is what we're talking about tonight, and do the roads that Councilor Steves was talking about. We're doing Brentwood, Prospect, and potentially some other roads as well, Marsh Avenue. So, you know, we could do that. We could take, there's two distinct things here, right? So when you take money out of, for instance, the demolition of building, that's a one-time revenue. Once you take it out, it's gone. What's good about the money we allocated tonight is that's an every year continuous revenue stream. So when you put 200 grand in this year, it's in the budget next year when you start out. If you take money from the one-time account, once you spend it, it's done. So the reason we went down this path is because we were looking to eventually get up to $500,000 in the budget every year, and we could keep funding it. If Councilor Adams, we took 100 grand out of here and replaced that with money from one-time money, next year when we did budget, we'd be trying to go up to 200,000 again. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference in whatever Councilor chooses to do. But the good thing about this is this is a fixed, continuous plan of revenue that we're dealing with to fix roads. We're taking money from those one-shot accounts, be it those capital accounts you're talking about. It's a one-time deal, you know?
Thank you. All right. Is there anything further on general government? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move to public safety. Police, $4,381,818. Fire and ambulance, $2,535,498. Inspections, $144,123. Public safety programs accounts, streetlights, $150,000. for public safety's total of $7,211,439. Any questions on public safety? No. Public Works, DPW operations and administrations, $1,815,842. DPW snow and ice, $400,000 for a public works total of $2,215,842. Any questions, conversations, amendments? And none. Human Services, Health Department, $657,852. Veterans Services, $66,326. Community Center, $44,785. Library, $540,772. Recreation, $43,659. EHS program accounts, Veterans Benefits, $135,000. Veterans Memorials, $2,700. EHS program accounts, $137,700 for a human services total of $1,491,094. Questions, comments? Seeing none. Education, Southridge Public Schools, $28,744,243. For a Southridge Public Schools total of $28,744,243. Southern Worcester County Regional School District, Bay Path, $1,048,837. Southern Worcester County Regional School District, Bay Path Debt Service, $220,430 for a subtotal for Bay Path of $1,269,267. For an education total of $30,013,510. General fund total of $55,455,968. So that matches, correct? So that is the budget. Is there any further discussion on the budget? That will be the budget that we vote on tonight. Is that correct, Karen?
That is correct. Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
No.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Thank you. And again, obviously, this is not the final budget, as there will be a lot of work to do as we get further numbers. And I don't think I'm blind. I don't think anybody else, I hope not, is that there'll probably be some significant cuts.
What do you mean by
once we
that?
get some better numbers.
Mr. Chairman?
Of course,
What do you mean by-
revenue numbers, but if revenue numbers come in that are less than what we anticipate, we have to go back and adjust this budget, and it's going to take a vote of the council on how you're going to do that.
Okay.
You're either going to do it by cutting, or you're going to do it by transferring monies from whatever available accounts that you have. Am I correct, Karen? Rich, keep me if I'm wrong. Am I correct on that?
No, you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm new at this.
And again, my preference would have been to be able to put a hold on the budget and wait till we have numbers. But unfortunately, our charter is our charter, and we're following charter to at least adopt a budget. Doesn't mean that it's the final budget, depending on revenues. Item 5, vote to appropriate the amount of $4,154,903 for the FY 2021 sewer enterprise fund budget to be raised from sewer user charges and other departmental revenues. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Second,
I have a motion by Council Adams, seconded by Council Manner. Discussion, Mr. Town Manager.
I apologize. My mic
Anything?
wasn't. The next, I really don't have a lot to say. These are state requirement. If you have questions, Karen can answer them as we go through, but this is state requirement for revolving funds. Each and every year, we have to go through this process to reapprove these type of funds, but there's not really a lot to say. These are funds that have been in place for many years. It's just a state requirement.
I don't believe that's correct. Is it, Karen? This is the budget we wrote it on, not a revolving account, correct, Karen?
That is correct. These are enterprise funds, not revolving funds.
What did I say? I apologize. What did I say? I said they were revolving funds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you said these are state requirements.
Yeah, this is, just to be clear, Karen, these are state requirement that every year we reauthorize these accounts. Isn't that, that's my understanding, correct?
No, I think you're referring to the accounts that are the agenda items after this. These are the enterprise water to enterprise funds.
Okay, I apologize. You're correct. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. You're right.
Discussion, Council Marquetti? Go ahead.
How much does this, how much will this cause our sewer rates to go up? Can you give me a ballpark figure?
Through you, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have we talked about that with Heather, and I'm just trying to remember. I haven't close approximate, but Heather, what's the specific number that we talked about? I know it's like 1 to 2, but do you know the number? I don't want to make a mistake.
Actually, Karen has her hand up. Go ahead, Karen.
Karen has a number too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We're going to propose an increase of 2% in water and 1% in sewer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just an apology,
Councilman,
Mr.
go ahead.
I just want to make a comment that I want to see gold coming out of my faucet when the water is running. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I do know, I don't want to opine, but I'll leave my comments so that nobody gets upset. Any further discussion? Roll call. Go ahead, Council Nash. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Council Nash.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment that this particular item on the voting document at 4,100,000, I can't read it, 4,154,903 is about $10,000 less than it was last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather, did you have something you want to say?
I
see
just
your
want
light
to
on.
make, I just want to make a comment because I know the next question is going to be, well, then why are rates going up? Because rates are both based on what your budget is and what your revenue is coming in. So what we have seen is we've actually had usage go down both in our water and our sewer, which means in order to adjust for those very stable budgets, which both of them are very stable, we're going to have to increase rates a little bit to be able to continue to be able to function at the same level. So although the budget isn't gone up, the rates have to go up because our actual revenue coming in, because our usage is actually down, is gone down. So it's a two-pronged approach. It's not just budgeted number, it's also how much revenue and what you have for usage.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti?
After talking to residents, I think the reason the usage is down is because the rates are too high. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manner,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
No,
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Catrona.
No.
Item 6, vote to appropriate the amount of $3,585,515 for the FY 2021 Water Enterprise Fund budget to be raised from water user charges and other departmental revenues. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Steve, second by Councilor Nash.
So, Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
Go ahead.
For whatever reason, I skipped over the numbers on the agenda and got to item 9 a little early. This is the same exact thing we did for sewer we're doing for water. As citizens know, we have a separate water fund to take care of water in the town, and you were pointing out what the raising the water rate is. The good news with the water system, unlike the sewer system, it's in much better condition. So we haven't had to put the capital expenses into the water system than we did for the older sewer system. Although in the future, we are going to have some big projects, the South Street projects and others that there's going to be increases for. But overall, the system is in much better shape. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Nash? Did you have something?
Thank you. Just quickly, $75,000 different than last year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Heather, I guess just for the public, when we talk about water and sewer rates, could you just articulate that this goes for infrastructure repairs too? Is that correct?
Correct.
So if we want to maintain the system that we have, these are why the costs are. It's not just the usage of the water, but replacing water mains and valves and all that as well, pump stations to make sure that we have high quality products. Is that, I'm not opining, I'm just asking you a question if I could.
Yes, that is correct. So a big portion of both of these budgets are what is our debt and our future debt services to be able to do a lot of the capital projects that you're discussing here. So we are planning, the reason you're seeing water go up, we are planning for our South Street debt to come on because our South Street project will be coming. So we're planning forward. So you're going to see a slight increase to be able to cover that additional debt service that we've already approved. In addition, you know, we have Main Street that we're starting to work on. You'll see coming up in this budget approval for that water main replacement. We have some funding for both of our TIP project for additional capital expenses there. We have many capital projects that I know you've seen my long list of capital projects for my water and sewer accounts. And this is how that all gets funded, is through these budgets.
Thank you. Could I just ask you another question if I could?
Sure.
So the town council has worked very hard on trying to repair some roads, such as you just stated, Main Street and South Street. If we had not done the water improvements at that time when we do a road, do you think we're doing fiduciary responsibility to be able to say, hey, it's good practice to take care of our water mains and all the infrastructure underneath if we're going to build a new road? Is in your expertise as the DPW director, is that good financial management and planning on behalf of the town council?
That is excellent financial management and planning. Whenever we redo a road, we have to look at many things: water, sewer, drainage, all of the below ground infrastructure that we don't see. We have to evaluate it based on what we can see, whether it be from camera inspections, whether it be from us just looking down the sewer manholes and looking at them, based on the age of the water main, how many breaks that we've had, how old are the hydrants in the area. If we don't replace that, we're just going to end up having a major catastrophe, a water main break on a road that we just fixed. That is not going to help us get ahead in our road program at all. So we need to look at a whole system when we do it. There are sometimes times when we might have to do Band-Aids on roads and extend the life, but we want to look at it as a holistic approach and make that decision based on all of the knowledge. And that's what we try to do in my department and with our engineers that we work with we're working on designs for. We, try to make sure that we're looking at a holistic approach of the whole road and not just putting a pretty road over really bad underground infrastructure.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councilor Marquetti?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Heather. First of all, how much money is in the water and sewer stabilization fund and free cash funds?
Okay, so water has a stabilization fund, and I believe I do have the numbers here at some place, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to put my fingers on them since I'm at home and not. I believe water was somewhere around 1.8. Karen probably has the numbers in front of her.
I actually do, if you want me to go ahead with that.
Okay.
And the water stabilization fund is just over $2 million. And the sewer doesn't have a stabilization fund. It's in the retained earnings, and there's a 7 balance in there right now.
Thank you.
And if I could continue,
Go ahead, Councilor.
and those funds are taxpayers' money,
Those funds are ratepayers' money.
tax rate, same thing. And isn't it true that you're borrowing money this year to fix some sewer roads in the sewers and headworks? And I believe I was looking at the agenda tonight, and you are borrowing some money tonight to fix
We
these.
have both borrowings and appropriations out of free cash.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Did you have something, Ms. Clements, to this agenda item?
Yes, thanks. I think my camera's frozen. I raised my hand, but I'm not moving. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Blakely, Heather, in terms of the infrastructure. That's something that, you know, I like for continuing on with that. I know that Pam Regis used to say that all the time when we did the Henry Street project, that you're not going to pave over the bad infrastructure. It makes no sense. My question, though, is the Charlton situation. First off, well, I guess it's a two-parter. The Charlton water that's coming on board here, or I don't know if it's finished or not, that particular addition. Is that going to cause any, is that paying for itself? Is it going to cause any problems for us with that, with the usage, the additional, the additional carrying costs? Is it going to hurt us as a community in any way, shape, or form? Has that contract been finalized, officially finalized, not the template kind of version?
We are still functioning under the original IMA that, the IMA that was negotiated with Charlton. We don't have any different agreement from there. Their IMA allows them to do up to $5 million now that they upgraded the pump station. They are still under their usage targets. There has been no additional negotiations regarding them going consecutive or anything else.
Okay. I guess that's for future discussion. I would have thought by now that IMA, you're looking at 10 years or so. The original IMA?
I believe it was 20. It's not 9 because it was done while I was here. So
right.
I think
Okay. Yeah.
5 years.
When Chris Clark was here. Okay. I just was under the impression that would have been rewritten.
The IMA was rewritten when Kevin Pecos was here.
Right. But even that, I was under the impression was still not the finalized.
No, that
version.
was the finalized version.
Okay, it's for another discussion in DPW. Okay, so to my question, will that cause? Have we looked at all corner? So that's not going to be a detriment onto our side. Are they going to be paying their fair share? I've always had a problem with them paying the same rate as us. Will they be paying their fair share, and will it be causing us infrastructure or any other problems down the road? Are we accounting for all that? Us ratepayers.
Currently, the agreement that was signed, they pay the exact same rates that we do. I agree with you. It is a very tricky situation to say one is not supplementing the other. As they have more usage and they have more users, the agreement becomes more and more in our favor. As they have more connections and we get more connection fees, it becomes more and more in our favor. Right now, their usage has been actually pretty stable from where it was when the original IMA was even done, or even prior to any IMAs. Just like we have seen reductions in water usage in the town of Southridge, we've seen reduction of overall water use that we're sending to Charlton. It has gone up slightly, but for an overall what we would have expected, it should have gone up higher. I think that as a council and as it comes up, because there has been some discussions from the Charlton side, that we will have some interesting discussions about how much it costs us to provide water in Charlton, but I would say that I would prefer not to get into some of the numbers that I've looked at overall, and I think that the council has to take a hard look at them, but that will be something that would be a negotiation item with Charlton, and I wouldn't want to reveal our hand right now.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that input. It's been a while, and I think listening to other councilors question ratepayers and such, I appreciate your input to let us all know. And again, ratepayers being those who either use water and sewer. If you have your own wells and septics, then you're not a ratepayer, correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay, it's for the public. It's kind of like with cable situation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Steves?
Yeah,
Did you
just
have
one
anything,
quick,
Councilor?
yeah, just one quick question through you to Heather. How many gallons are we currently sending to Charlton?
It out, and I haven't looked at the numbers, and with this whole COVID thing, they've kind of gone down a little bit, which is, it's because because their biggest user is the Mass Pike, and as the people haven't been using the Mass Pike, the usage has gone down. So it was around 120,000 gallons per day average.
Okay, and I thought you said 5 million. I thought it was going up to 500,000.
I am sorry, it's 500,000 is their limit, correct? But they're not, like I said, they're not anywhere close to that on an average daily basis. Their usage is very dependent on.
What was it again, Heather?
Their usage is very dependent on the Mass Pike.
Right.
They have two major rest areas there. I think everybody knows that. And Treehouse Brewing actually is an extremely big user. And then their residential is probably almost, doing the numbers in my head, that probably makes up for about 40,000 gallons today normally between those three places.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. And that was going to be a question to Ms. Blakely with regards to COVID-19 and the water reduction for the town of Southridge. Is that why you see the decrease for the town of Southridge?
Actually, when we look at the Southbridge numbers, I don't think we see as much of a decrease. It's a little harder to say because of the way our system reacts. You know, some days it seems like it's higher, some days it seems like it's lower. But it's easier to see when it goes out to Charlton because it's all pumped. When we have our gravity system and how it reacts, it's not as stable. You know, the curves are a little more funky. But why we're seeing a reduction overall is more because of as more places get upgraded and more people are concerned about their water use and concerned about their water rates and that what they're paying for water, they put water conserving toilets in, they use water conserving shower heads, they use water conserving dishwashers and washing machines. You know, nowadays you can't buy a new appliance that doesn't have water conservation in it. So if you're replacing something that was 10 or 15 years old with a new appliance, you're automatically seeing a reduction in your water use.
Right. So I understand that, but we didn't see a reduction last year. We're seeing a reduction this year. We did. Okay.
We have seen over the past couple years, we keep seeing a trend, an overall trend of a reduction in actual gallons.
Okay, so it's a steady trend. It's not a dip. It's a steady trend. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call. Oh, Councilor Nash, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is something that maybe Heather can address quickly, and then it can come up again during the water and sewer rate hearings later on. But you know, I support the levels at which we're looking to get to with the water and sewer enterprise funds. With the water always being a hot topic in the summertime with taste and odor complaints. Maybe not this last year, it wasn't so obvious, but Heather, we are taking steps at our water treatment facility to have that addressed, correct?
Yep, we have started, we're on our second phase of our pilot testing for taste and odor. So at this point, unfortunately, we have to kind of wait for the taste and odor to appear to be able to conduct that pilot. So in the upcoming months, probably later on in May, early June, July, we will be conducting a taste and odor pilot to try to see if we can get any removal of the organics that are in the water to be able to remove them before they become a taste and odor problem. So we will be conducting that pilot study this late spring, early summer, as long as we see the levels that we can actually detect to be able to determine whether we're removing them or not.
Thank you.
But everything is in place to be able to do that study.
All set? Councilor Nash, all set? Any
Thank
further
you.
discussion? Okay, roll call.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
No,
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steve,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
and Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 7, vote to amend Schedule 1 to approve non-union 2% increase in positional changes effective July 1st, 2020 as well as motion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Councilor
Second.
Daniel, Councilor Daniel moved, Councilor Nash second, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said it's appropriately. This is the classification and compensation plan for all of our non-union members. When I say all of, I mean all of our full-time type of positions. A couple of little minor changes. The HR specialist found a couple of positions that were not on the schedule. She added them to them. It's on page 2, the circulation supervisor at the library and the circulation assistant. They were in the categories, everything was right, but for some reason they weren't on the schedule, so she added them onto the schedule. But other than that, it just reflects the straight 2% raises.
Discussion? Councilor Marquetti?
yeah, this is one that I feel that the town just is in no position to give 2% raises to highly paid non-union employees. Some of these employees are making, over $100,000 a year. However, I don't want to see somebody making, minimum wage or $15 an hour. I don't want to see them hurt, but I just was wondering if there was a way we could split this agenda for those making, we get 2% raise for those making less than 75,000. If we could split the agenda, or if you prefer, I would just make an amendment.
Not sure because it's a personnel schedule. I'd have to defer to the town manager as to how that would work because it is a approved personnel schedule. So I'm not sure how that works.
First, Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments here, right? So as you all recall, by union contract, all of the unions get 2% raises. And, a lot of our staff eventually comes out of the union ranks and tries to work their way up to become managers. And these are non-union employees. They don't have to be non-union employees. They could organize and become union people. We try to make our non-union employees, the benefits they get in terms of wages increases consistent with all of our other employees. I don't encourage, and I think it's a mistake to just punish the non-union people who are your top managers who are working their tails off and leading people and making the tough decisions. I think it would be unfair to punish them by not giving them the same wages as their employees. It also makes a salary difference between being an employee and a manager higher, which gives you a lot of reason to people go, well, why do I want to take on all this management responsibility if I'm going to be paid less than what I should be for that work? So I really think it's a mistake to go down there for that reason. But even more importantly, the last thing I would want to see is these employees get together and say, you know what, being treated unfairly, we should create a union, and that would cause more costs in terms of union negotiations and getting lawyers involved. And I really think that we need to be consistent here. I appreciate that managers make more money than staff, but they make more money than staff because they've done things to earn their way to move up the ranks and become a manager. And the responsibility of managers is, as you see, because frankly, all these, all the managers are before this town council presenting budgets, answering difficult questions. They get more money because truthfully, they're simply worth more money in terms of their knowledge and experience. So I think it's a mistake to divide it, and I would recommend heavily against it.
Okay, Councilor Marquetti, go ahead and follow.
I'll yield to somebody if somebody else wants to talk.
Okay, Councilor Steves, go ahead.
You come back to me, please.
Councilor Steves, go ahead.
I think Councilor Catrona was before me, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see him on the bottom. Councilor Catrona, go ahead. Thank you, Councilor Steves. I'm not intentionally
Thank you.
just trying to. Go ahead, Councilor
Through you,
Catrona.
Mr. Chair. Thanks, Gus. Nobody ever used the word punish, Mr. Town Manager. Nobody ever, I haven't heard that word used. In Councilor Marquette's recommendation, I think this is something that can be readdressed again once we realize what funds we're going to have. We can come back to council. I don't think it's something right now that we can support, that I can support, until we know what money we're going to have in that checkbook in our account. I certainly cannot support this. Thank you.
Councilor Steves, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman.
Councilor Steves.
Quick, to refer to something that Councilor Marchetti said a second ago. I think the only one on this particular schedule that is even close to minimum wage is number 8, the specialized services, the $12.75 rate. Everything else is significantly above minimum wage, and I believe, and I think either Ron or Karen can correct me on this one. I believe that minimum wage is again rising to 13 and something in January. Is that correct?
Yeah, defer to Karen. I know that the minimum wage has risen in the series. You're absolutely right, Councilor Steves. There's a series for it going up. And I don't know if it's the $15 an hour, what that exact amount. Our finance director, Karen, do you know the schedule for the timing of the increase in minimum wage?
I believe that it is January 1st, and I believe it's going up to, it would be $13.50, but that's something that we'll bring back to the council closer to that date.
Okay, and to continue, I agree. I understand Councilor Catrona's and Councilor Marchetti's concerns here. And I was stating something similar earlier when we were talking about the possible need to sit down and talk to our staff about potentially foregoing some of the raises. I think we haven't had that conversation yet. And that's maybe something that Ron needs to be doing very soon, or whoever the town whoever his replacement is will have to be doing very, very soon after we figure out how much money we actually have. I'm going to support this now, however, kind of tentatively, given what I just said. So it may be something that kind of tying into the whole issue that it's easier to cut than it is to raise it again. We may end up having to come back and visit this again in July. Thanks.
Do you have a response, Mr. Town Manager? Then I'll go to Council Manager.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Councilor Steves, you remember I'm the one that made the comment about potentially, depending upon how bad this coronavirus situation goes, that you may have to open up collective bargaining agreements. And I would agree with you, if it does get bad, that's something that it's going to have to be considered. I don't know if the timing would be when I'm here or not here, depending upon how this plays out over the next couple of months. I think it's something that you might have to look at if the revenue numbers are significantly down. My only comment is I think it should be fair across the board for union and non-union members. So I think that, in my opinion, you vote this through now. If you open up those discussions with the union members, you open up those discussions with the non-union members. So and I apologize, maybe I used the wrong word in punish, but they would feel that way. I mean, the non-union guys would feel, non-union staff would feel, how come us and not the union guys? So maybe that was the incorrect word, but I think that the union members have expressed to me on numerous occasions that because they don't have a union, we could cut their raises easier, and it makes them very uncomfortable that they wouldn't be treated as like the union members. I will say to you, absolutely, depending upon the revenue numbers, somebody may have to revisit the discussion with all the unions, because if the answer is, if the numbers come down and you really got to seriously consider layoffs, the unions, some of the unions, or maybe all the unions, may be open to reducing salary increases in order to save positions. That's the trade-off when you're negotiating union givebacks. As of right now, I'm not hearing town managers do that yet, but I think that is a reality of the future if revenues go down significantly and no federal funds come in to help the towns. I think that's something that a town manager is going to have to seriously consider.
Council Stacy, did you have a response to that? And then I'll go to Council Manna.
No, not really. I think we're on the same page as far as that goes. It's not something we really want to be considering. And I said earlier, I would really definitely like to keep the people employed because, you know, nobody likes to be without a job. Nobody wants to be in a situation where they can't support their families. So this is a tough situation for everybody.
Agreed.
Council Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So this is one of the things that I do agree with Council Marquetti and Council Catrona on. The 2% increases across the board for all non-union members. Well, I have a problem with that because I believe that a raise should be done on merit, no matter what. It shouldn't just be 2% because somebody could be doing, you know, a crummy job and somebody could be doing, you know, a top job and they're still getting the same range. So I just don't agree with that. We go back to when the town hall employees, excluding the department heads, were union, and then they decided not to go union. I remember the conversation with Chris Clark. He was a town manager then. And he had articulated to us that, yeah, the employees, the non-managerial employees, they didn't want to be like, you know, forgotten when it came time for raises and stuff like that. They didn't want to be treated, as you put it, unfairly. And I don't think they have. I don't think they have been treated unfairly at all. They're basically still getting the same benefits that they did when they were union. But there's a difference between union and non-union, okay? Non-union members are not going to get the same advantages that the union members get. And when it comes to the department heads, they get paid a lot more than anybody because, yes, they did work their way up to that. And that's what they went to school for. And that's what their expertise is. And, you know, exactly what they do. And I don't want to get anybody mad at me, but I just don't think that a 2% rate increase across the board is warranted. I believe that it should all be merit-based. And if we're going to do anything, maybe, you know, I agree with Council Marquetti, looking at the numbers and maybe splitting it and, you know, probably not, you know, the managers, the department heads foregoing their raises right now. And, you know, and then looking at something like that. But I've never been a believer that everyone should get 2% across the board. You know, I don't even think in the corporate world they do that unless the company's doing good and they get some type of extra money and they give out bonuses. But right now we're not doing good and we shouldn't be handing out bonuses. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Adams, did you have your hand up? No, I thought I saw your hand. Thank you. For Councilor Marquetti, that's right. Go ahead.
Like I said, it's not a matter of somebody doing a crummy job or anything. I'm just saying that this year, it's tough to try and justify this. I don't think the town could afford it. You can't afford a 2% raise. Many of these, as Councilor Manna said, many of these department heads are making well over $100,000. So that's why I thought I'd like to make an amendment to split the vote. And for those making less than $75,000, they would get a 2% raise. Those making 75 and over would not get a 2% raise. Now, if you'd rather I just put that as a straight amendment and do that rather than splitting it, that's fine either way.
Okay. Again,
I think according to Robert's rules, you can split an amendment, but you know, if you prefer just a straight amendment, that's fine.
I'm not questioning an amendment. I'm talking it's a personnel schedule, so I don't know. I'm not the personnel guy. The legalities of a schedule and splitting a schedule and targeting individual line items. That's my only concern on that, Councilman Marquetti. I certainly understand your point. It's a salary schedule. That's why I'm not the personnel expert to determine whether you can split a schedule like that. That's all. I'm my only concern of whether you could do that legally. That's all.
Okay.
No questions about your amendment at all. I understand it. I understand Councilman Mana's point as well. Councilman Mana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So if we want to go back a few years too, back to the Great Recession, which I consider depression, when, you know, the market, just like the housing market, just crashed and everybody everybody was losing their homes and stuff. I believe that was a worse financial economic situation that we were in then than we are in now. And I remember there were some pay cuts, and they took a temporary pay loss, and then like for 6 months, or I forget how long, maybe Karen knows. And then after everything was over and we got the money and we knew what we were dealing with, then they went back to their regular pay schedule and stuff. Is there something that maybe we can do with that, like suspend it for now and, you know, don't get that increase and wait 6 months and see how everything plays out?
Okay, Mr. Town Manager?
So Mr. Chairman, I would not even attempt to do this in an offhanded way in a meeting. And there's even a number of these employees that are contractual in basis. The police chief, the finance director, the future town manager. Well, me, it doesn't matter, but you know, a future town manager is contractual. I would not know how to do that in a whim like this. I think it would be a mistake to do it, an amendment, without having any legal advice or any real plan exactly how to do this. I personally think, I'm sorry, if I could just finish. I personally think that this would have a negative effect on the morale of all your best people who are right now working a lot of long hours to take care of major issues, coronavirus and others. I just believe that we have a tremendously dedicated and quality team of department heads. And I wouldn't, from my perspective, want to do anything that would entice them to be frustrated and want to look at any other position in some other community. But you know, I understand the frustration of the dollars and the cost, but I think I really, again, really believe you need to be consistent across the various labor components to make sure that everybody's treated in the same way.
Councilman?
Thank you. But I'm just going to follow up on that. We could postpone this, not table it or anything. We could postpone this until we get some more clarification on it. But Mr. Town Manager, I respectfully disagree with you. I don't believe that it's going to bring down morale at all. If we hold off on something like this. We had our department heads a few years ago when the economy did crash and we had people losing their homes left and right. We had bankruptcies all over the place. People couldn't afford to put food on the table, not only in our community, but other communities too. And, you know, we had our department heads taking 5 and 10% reductions in their pay, you know, for so long. I mean, they did what they had to do to save, you know, the economy in our town, for the budget, to help out with our budget. So, I mean, I would recommend that we just postpone this item for right now and then take it up at another meeting after we get some clarification on Councilor Marchetti's question, and maybe look back at the history of when the Great Recession and, you know, the department heads took their they took their reductions, and, you know, we moved forward after that. I mean, when the economy was thriving again, or we knew we had our number, they got paid what they were supposed to be getting paid. So, and I just don't believe we're not equal across the board. We are not. There's not one person equal across the board. We're all different. And I just disagree with you on that statement wholeheartedly. And, you know, there's a reason why department heads get paid what they get paid. There's a reason why we should have merit increases and not just 2% across the board to everybody, no matter what. I don't even believe that for the unions. So, thank you.
Ms. Heinrichs?
Yes, thank you. If I could, I would just not recommend picking the number, say like 75,000, because what I can see on the salary schedule is like in the middle sections, the range goes from like 69,000 to 83. So someone could be on a step somewhere. So it's going to be kind of hard to maneuver that. So we would have to think of it of a different way of doing it, rather than picking a number that's kind of like that in the middle of a scale.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree with Councilor Manna as far as the evaluation system. I've said that before multiple times, but I do respectfully disagree that it wouldn't hurt morale, especially some of these leaders that are out here right now that are working quite a few hours because of this COVID virus and a few other things. But my opinion only, but I'm in favor of this Schedule 1 that we haven't had in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Steves, and then I have Mr. Cunningham. Councilor Steves, did you have something?
I did.
I saw your hand go up.
I did. You did. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I actually agreed with Councilor Manna about the potential postponing this. After all, this won't take effect until July anyway. So we do have another month to see if we can get some more data on this. I can understand what Ms. Harnoy said a few minutes ago about splitting it at some arbitrary number, 75 grand. I understand. I think where Councilor Marchetti is coming from, and I totally agree with the idea that the lesser paid people probably need more of it than some of the higher paid people. But maybe there's some better way we can look at it, and maybe it would be an issue of figuring out. And I don't know if this is a question through you to Karen about how the schedule is itself structured, and are there ways to create those kinds of splits that would maybe accomplish something resembling what Councilor Marchetti was talking about?
If I could, without going into too much about it, I think what you probably could do is maybe look in the different sections, like the administrative salaries at the top, and then the MS schedule in the middle. And if you wanted to do maybe more of an increase in one area than another, maybe that would make sense. Maybe you could do a 2 in 1, and one area. But I don't want to make any I don't really want to make any suggestions at this point.
Yeah. All right. I'll go to Mr. Canoyer, and then.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead,
I
Mr.
just
Canoyer.
want to give I just want to give an employee perspective on this. So way back, approximately 2002, the non-union employees, they felt at that time they were being mistreated, not treating fairly compared to the union employees. So they voted in a union. And I can tell you, as a manager, it was a lot more onerous to manage them correctly. Somewhere around 2008, 2009, 2010, there was a history that they were treated fairly again, and they voted not to continue that union, which was a great thing. And they've been treated fairly ever since. This discussion comes up periodically every year or so, every couple of years. But it's good that they've been treated fairly, and they're content. So when we hear a proposal like this, I was going to speak if there was any talk to eliminate that for all the employees, because the non-union employees, the administrative people, these are not wealthy people. When after their health insurance, which is quite high and so forth, their wages are not excessive. In fact, they probably qualify for some types of aid in the world. So I'm glad this proposal didn't include them. But then you come up with an arbitrary amount like 75,000. Like Mrs. Harnoy said, there's people who fall in the middle of that. But even using that number, so what are we talking about over that? Probably 10 people, maybe. The dollar amounts on 2%, I'm not going to say they're nothing, but they're not significant in this kind of budget. And as far as how would this affect morale? Well, I can tell you personally. I was at work at 7 o'clock this morning. The health director was there. The town clerk came in a few minutes after. It's 9 o'clock now. We'll probably be at this another couple of hours. Tomorrow, we're in the middle of this munis conversion. It's massive. We'll do whatever we can. I can speak Melissa, the treasurer. She and I communicate with emails all the time on the Friday afternoons, on the weekends. We're working on this proposal. I'm not going to say how it'll affect her morale, but it'll hurt my personal morale. Do I want to spend a Saturday afternoon working on a munis conversion? No, I don't, but it's what I do. I just think this is ill-advised. If this is something that needs to be taken up, speak to all the employees so everybody feels they're being treated fairly. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? I didn't have any motion, other motions, so.
I'd like to
Councilman
make a motion.
Yeah.
I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to make a motion to postpone this item to the next meeting. This way we can get some clarification. Mr. Marquetti brings up a good point. I think everybody brought up good points, and I think there's a way we can come to a consensus with us if we postpone it and it's discussed a little bit further. And like Mr. Knoyer said, discuss among the employee. And I just want to say one thing. I wasn't talking about the morale, like it's going to hurt your morale if you don't get this raise. I was talking about it's not going to hurt your morale if this is postponed, if you if you suspend that 2%, you know, for 6 months or so, because you're going to end up getting all that money back once we know what the actual budget is. So if I misspoke, I apologize. But, you know, I used to be salaried too, and I know what it's like to work weekends. And just so you know, I've been sitting at my desk since 8 o'clock this morning too, because I have to work too. So, I mean, and I do work on the weekends myself too. So I totally get it. And this is a job that I'm not getting paid for. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
I'll second it.
So there's a motion and a second to postpone to the next meeting, which would be June 8th for further clarification. Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone? No. And, okay, I think it's a roll call for postpone, right? Is
I think Gus
debatable?
has his hand up.
Did you have some? Gus, go ahead.
Yeah, just one quick thing. I just wanted to say that I agree with what Will said a couple of seconds ago about the importance of taking some time to actually sit down and talk to all of the employees, both the non-union and the union people, because if this becomes necessary to make any salary cuts, it has to be fair and across the board. I do agree with that.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so there's a motion and a second to postpone. Roll call. To be postponed to June 8th, the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Counselor
Roll
Manna,
call.
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steve,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
No.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
No.
and Counselor Jovan.
Yes, for discussion purposes. Thank you. Okay, motion to postpone. Item 8, vote to amend Schedule 5 to approve a 2% increases effective July 1st, 2020 as proposed. Is there a motion?
I move to postpone this the same way we just did the last one.
Second.
So the motion to postpone?
Yeah,
Is that correct, Council Nash? All right. So there's a motion to postpone this agenda item 8 to June 8th. Okay. Any discussion on that? Roll call.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
No.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
No.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes, for discussion purposes.
and Counselor Manna.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 9, vote to reauthorize the leased properties revolving fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half to pay repairs, improvements, expenses, and utilities for all town-owned leased property from lease payments to be deposited in the account, with all expenditures to be approved by the town manager and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $100,000 per year. Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor Steve, second by Councilor Nash. Karen, do you want to just say what these revolving funds are and the purpose of these? So as we go through them. they're very similar. They're vote to authorize certain revolving funds, correct?
Sure.
Go
This
ahead.
lease properties revolving fund is the Armory or the community center, which would be the Meals on Wheels that pays a small amount of rent each month. It would be when we rent out the community center to various organizations, and also accounts for the rental revenue and any expenses associated with the RMV building.
Thank you. Discussion, Council Steve?
Yeah, first off, because I work for Meals on Wheels, I'm going to abstain and voting on this particular issue. However, I do have a question that relates to all of the upcoming revolving funds. Since we voted to put them in the bylaws, why do we need to reauthorize them every year? They're now in the bylaws.
If I could, Mr. Chair, actually, that's what it says in the Mass General laws, that you have to reauthorize with an amount each year, because in the bylaw, there are no amounts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. Clements, I see a light illuminated. Do you have a question? Or
Thank you.
something for this
Yeah,
agenda?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, to the town manager, in regard to the community, to the registry building, the old depot there, do you know the?
So no,
is
not
you're responsible for buildings?
not off the top of my head what the rent is. I do know we discussed, I think in general government, actually, I think you asked the question in general government about the lease coming. And the lease is not up to that, but it is something that the new town manager is going to have to do, open up discussions on the leasing of that property. I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head. Perhaps the finance director knows that number.
Okay.
Ms. Henry?
And also, when is the lease up, Mr. Town Manager?
I want to say it's about 6 months, Denise, but I'd have to look to get you the exact date. But there's time for the negotiation. I think well, again, it depends. I guess we could open up that negotiation once the building opens up. But my guess is that probably will become an agenda item of the new town manager.
Okay, I do remember we discussed in general government a long time ago, so like last fall. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Ms. Harner, did you have that number?
I believe it's a little over $1,300 a month.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was 11 or, okay, thank you.
Sure.
And just as a point of clarification, it was discussed in this general government cycle. The question was asked about the lease terms. It was discussed during our budget presentations this year. This is a point of information to the public. So it has been discussed recently. Any further, Councilor Marquetti?
This is something that, it's really new to me. And the question that I have, maybe somebody could just clear it up for me for all of these revolving accounts here. It says that total expenditures from the account not to exceed 100,000 per year. Are we taking in that much money that would cover all of that? Or are the expenditures above and beyond what we're taking in? I'm sorry, I'm just a little naive on this one.
That's okay.
I'm not quite sure I understand.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. That's good time to ask because there's several other revolving accounts. Ms. Henry?
Yes, sure. Mr. Chair, if I could, the 100,000 is actually higher than what the current expenses and revenues are. I just want to have it at that level in case it does rise a little bit higher. I believe it's between $60,000 and $80,000.
Just
I'm sorry.
Just to follow up.
Go ahead, Mr. Tower.
Thank you. So, Councilor Marquetti, you would see if the expenditures were ever over the revenues in that account, because we would have to come to you and ask for some kind of transfer or money for an expenditure, but that hasn't really been a problem. I don't remember us having to transfer any money into these revolving accounts because of an over expenditure, but you would know about it if that would occur because we would have to come to council for a transfer.
Okay, thank you. The way it reads to me, you can decide on your own, but if that's the case, then that's fine with me. Thank you.
Only if the money's in the account.
Okay.
So in other words, you can't go over what money you collect, because that's the purpose of a revolving fund, is that money comes back in to use for that particular purpose. That's why there's a revolving fund. It's dedicated to a specific type of thing.
All right, thank you. Thank you for clearing that up.
No problem.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Roll call?
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Abstain.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
and Counselor Marquetti.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 10, vote to reauthorize the Southbridge Airport Leased Properties Revolving Fund under the provisions of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2 to pay repairs, improvements, expenses, and utilities for the leased property at the Southbridge Municipal Airport from lease payments to be deposited in the account, with all expenditures to be approved by the town manager and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $200,000 per year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Daniels, second by Councilor Manna. Is there any questions on this one?
I just
Go ahead, Councilor Marquetti.
want to make it clear now. I mean, this is money that's coming in. This isn't taxpayers' money, correct? This is money from leases, from lease accounts, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes,
and Counselor Nash.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 11, vote to reauthorize the toter maintenance revolving fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2 to pay for the replacement of lost and/or damaged toters from fees by homeowners and deposited in the account, with all expenditures to be approved by the Health Department and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $10,000 per year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion by Councilor Daniel, second by Councilor Steves. Any discussion on this? Any questions on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
yes,
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
and Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 12, vote to reauthorize the demolition of buildings revolving fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2 to pay expenses associated with the demolition of buildings within the town of Southbridge and any revenue recaptured to be deposited in the account, with all expenditures from the account not to exceed $185,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilor Daniel, second by Councilor Adams. Questions? Councilor Manna?
So I've been a big advocate to take money out of this because it's not being used, and, you know, I just can't support this. The money could be better spent elsewhere. Thank you.
Karen, can you clarify this? Do we have 185,000 in this revolving account? Or is that, I thought that what we have is different. Just clarify that for me.
Yeah, oh, please,
Sure.
thank you. I'm wrong.
Sure. What is in this account is actually not really that much, because when we had some that they actually paid back from a demolition lien, we actually used some of that. So there isn't much for a balance in this account. I don't know exactly how much, but I'm going to say $5,000-6,000 right now.
So just so I'm correct, it's not the special appropriation account. It's just the revolving account for monies that come in. If we sell a piece of property on the lien, it comes in and stays in that account, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Then I
All
support
right,
it.
thank you. Okay, thank you. It's confusing. There's so many different accounts for blighted buildings. Councilor Steves?
Yeah, just one quick question through you to Karen. How much is this, what's the highest number this account has had in it that you can recall?
The reason why we put it at the 185,000, I think that's probably why what your question is back before we did the bylaws for the revolving, the most a revolving account could be, I believe, is 1% of the tax levy. So that's why, not knowing what we would put out there as a lien and get back, we just put it at the maximum. I'm going to say we probably had between 20 and 30,000 in there at one point, but it's never been this high.
That's what I thought, and I was curious because, and I know that setting it at 185,000 really is just a placeholder. That's what these revolving funds are for. It just decides
Correct.
how big the pocket is.
Yeah.
Most of them never reach anywhere close to that number.
That is correct. I mean, if we wanted to set it lower, but it wouldn't, I would just put it, like you said, as a placeholder in the account, just in case we do a lien and then we get the money in that we can accept the money.
Okay. Ms. Clements, you had your hand up for this agenda item. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, Ms. Harno explained things. When that account was set up, I just wanted to make a comment about when it was set up for monies to come back from the various buildings. There was a lot of buildings out there, and the monies coming back had a place to go so they could be turned around and reused to polish other buildings. And so it was just something that seemed prudent at the time. I applaud all of you for taking money out of the demolition account and trying to make that money be held back in case the town needs it. This makes sense. The other at this point doesn't make sense because we need that money for other things. But this account just was put in place to receive, hopefully, people whose buildings were bad, and that we took them and finally got paid back either tax money or sale of property or something, so that we could continue that effort of blight improvement. So just wanted to mention that when it came out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Marquetti, I see your light is green. Go ahead.
And what happens if we don't recoup that money?
Karen.
To anyone?
Well, I guess what'll happen is eventually either the property will be sold and we'll recoup it, or the town will take it through foreclosure. I don't know if Melissa can add anything additional to my comments.
Yeah, so when a property has a demolition lien on it, I mean, it's often goes into foreclosure because when to redeem it is sometimes now worth more than the land alone is worth, and then if there was a house on it. But that depends, because if by clearing the structure, you now have laid a foundation for something new to be built without then it could be profitable. But in any case, we would take it through foreclosure, and then whatever the auction proceeds are goes to the tax, when it goes to sale of, Karen, does tax title sales go to sale of lots, town-owned property?
I think what we would do is we would take like the demolition lien first, and then whatever tax.
And then write off any difference? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then if there's anything left over, then it would come to the town. A lot of times there isn't much left.
Yep.
Because if I could continue.
Go ahead, Councilor Marquetti.
Through the chair, because I know there was a house on Rose Street and the town had to tear it down, and the owner sold it before they could recoup any money. And then the new owner couldn't pay anything. So the town ended up having to pay for that. So my question is, what happens when the town can't recoup the money? Does the town have to pay this?
Chairman Marquetti? I mean, not Chairman Marquetti, Chairman Joman?
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. Good. Have fun.
To Councilor Marquetti's point, most of we don't recoup what we have into it. The town does lose money on these properties because the properties don't, to take down a property, we just took down, this year, 68 Pine Street. It cost over $60,000. If the town takes that back, we now have a vacant lot there. We won't recoup the $68,000, Mr. Marquetti.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Marquetti, you have a follow-up question for that?
Well, no, I just said, so then, in other words, this agenda item, we're going to spend money that is not being recouped, I guess. Is that the answer?
We ultimately, yes, but the goal here is to improve the town and make it more marketable. So hopefully in the long run, it'll increase the value of the town as a whole.
All right. I'm good, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind me just following up on that.
Thank you.
We
Any further
could,
discussion? Ms. Harnois, go ahead.
yeah, we could, out of this
Okay.
revolving, we could never spend more money than what we recoup. We would have to pay out of the capital projects or the articles, we appropriated money for demo, and that would be the money that we wouldn't recoup.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel, Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steve,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I respectfully request that we take a recess after item 14, just a quick bathroom break?
Yeah, I agree. So, all right, we'll go next two and then we'll take a break because yes, I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion on those. All right, item 13, vote to reauthorize the municipal hearing officer revolving fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half to pay expenses associated with the administration and collection of fines in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 148A, Chapter 115 of the Acts of 2009. Such fines to be deposited in the account with all expenditures to be approved by the town manager and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $2,500. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Council Daniel, second by Council Nash. Any questions? Concerns? Request for information? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Catrona.
No.
Item 14, vote to reauthorize the Southridge Middle High School Store Revolving Fund under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half to pay expenses associated with the school store from receipts to be deposited into the account with all expenditures to be approved by the school superintendent and total expenditures from the account not to exceed $30,000 per year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion by Council Daniel, second by Council Steves. Any questions? Request for information? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
and Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries to take a recess for approximately 10 minutes. Yep, she's back. She made it. Okay, call this meeting back to order at 9:55 p.m. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, so item 15, vote to appropriate $357,600 from free cash to purchase a new ambulance and related equipment for the fire department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Motion I vote motion by Council Adams, second by Council Daniel. Mr. Town Manager, you want to take this first?
Thank you, and I see the deputy chief. I'm not sure if the chief is on. We had long discussions about this ambulance in subcommittee. I'm sorry.
Somebody in the background, it's fine. Okay.
So we had long discussions about this ambulance. The ambulance is needing more and more repairs. The fire chief came in and made a strong argument for this. I think it was pretty unanimous members of the town council that this was one of the most critical issues in terms of a capital item. And I think it's one of those things that I think it's a priority, and I think it's important that we do it. Again, I'm not sure if the chief is on, Mr. Chairman. I do see the deputy chief's name, but.
The chief is here. Chief Norberding, you want to give a quick brief on this?
Yeah, so
I know we
quickly.
talked about it extensively.
No, we've hit this subject along with many other subjects quite intensively over the last 4 months, spending great time doing this project along with everything else. But ultimately, this ambulance is a 2007 that's been, we've dumped about $7,000 or $8,000 into it this year with motor issues. This vehicle is ridiculously and notoriously having multiple engine issues from the Ford manufacturer. This vehicle most likely probably will not pass state inspection this year. This is the multiple years we've used this vehicle. It has definitely been well worth the money that we spent on it in 2007. It's time to replace this vehicle, and this appropriation will put the vehicle, a new vehicle on the road, and also fully equipped. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief Normandin. Again, I hear the need. I don't think this is the right time. Right now, I think that money should go into stabilization. If there becomes an urgent need, the money can always come out. If we have an emergency, the money can always come out. You also have mutual aid right now, and I'm not sure if that's something that we're using 2 ambulances. I don't know, and I won't pretend to know what goes on there every day, but I don't think right now is the time for us to be spending this money. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chief Norman, could you please address the fact that this was on last year's capital plan, got bumped to this year, so we got an extra year out of it, and also the conversations about the lead time to build an ambulance. So it's not something that, I mean, there's a period of time that even if we fund this to order it, it could be 6 to 7 months before we even could take delivery of this. Is that correct?
All of those items, Mr. Chairman, is correct to what you said. The lead time, I just was talking with a vendor today in regards to this. This lead time has been increased to 180 days. This vehicle that we're replacing is 14 years old. I don't want to come in September and have the state OEMS department come in and say the ambulance that we were trying to replace for the last 2 years now can't be used. Mutual aid is not an option. I'll be honest with you. If the other towns around us heard that we wouldn't buy an ambulance to suffice doing our own call volume, they're strapped just as bad as we are. A lot of the towns around us only have 2 ambulances, and their call volume dictate that. The need to have this ambulance is very important. It's a 3rd ambulance. Our call volume has increased 15% over the last year. The calls still continue to come in. Again, I think this is a very important need, and we need to push forward and get this done. So if we ordered the ambulance now, we probably wouldn't be getting it until October at least. But if we wait another 3 or 4 months, the supply of Ford chassis, my vendor mentioned today, the Ford chassis that we're looking for, because Detroit has been shut down for some time, we probably will be waiting longer than I just stated, the 180 days. The time right now is the right time to make this decision, and I hope that we continue to move down that road.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Marchetti, I think I saw your light. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Joe on this one. I mean, right now, because of the emergency of the pandemic and the fact that people are are going to have a hard time with this spending more money. This isn't the time. I look at the fine print here on your free cash certification. I'm looking at the fine print, and it says that the vehicle has several severe rotting issues and will cost $2,700 for body repair. The vehicle has a Power Stroke engine that has the worst reputation in the diesel industry. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but an engine and body work will cost a lot less money than $375,000. So I'm thinking that if you could keep this going for another year, replace the engine if you have to. I mean, it doesn't say here the engine is broke, just says it's got a bad reputation. That's all this says. But if you can keep it going another year with body work and a new engine, then I would hope that you could keep this going until we know what's going on with our funds. So thank you.
Thank you. Council Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I support this because, you know, I mean, the ambulance is a necessity, especially in our town. I would hate to see something break down on the ambulance during the middle of a call, you know. So question to Chief Normandin, to replace the engine and replace the body rot, how much, do you have an estimate on that? Would it be worth it?
I can get those figures. I don't know how the frame looks underneath. Office of Emergency Medical Services comes out and does a yearly inspection. 2 years ago, they found the hood, excuse me, not the hood, but the cab of the vehicle had broken in places that they've never seen before. So 2 years ago, this vehicle was already undergoing stress problems. The twisting and the use of this vehicle is high in demand. It's not a regular passenger vehicle. It responds in in emergency mode where the speeds are excessive. I don't think, safety wise, I cannot guarantee that this is not going to break down with a patient in it. I can't guarantee that. But getting back to your original question, Monique, is that the engine, I'm going to guess, I'm not a mechanic, $40,000 or $50,000. And we hope that the new engine is going to last. It's going to keep the vehicle out of service for several days to weeks. I think dumping in, $75,000 to do body work and an engine to hope that it passes DOT with frame rot. And also, again, OEMS has the final word about certifying an ambulance. I'm just going by my experience on a use of an ambulance. What I see in this vehicle, it needs to be replaced.
So, I mean, I'm not a mechanic either by any means. But I would think that if you're going to replace the engine and the body, then you just might as well invest in a new ambulance or a new vehicle. That way you have it. Instead of wasting the money, you put like $125,000 into it, and the next year you still need a new vehicle. Now you're wasting money, and you're not really saving anything. So I support this.
Thank you, Councilor. Ms. Clements, do you have a comment?
A question through you to Chief Normandin. Chief, how many shifts or how many days, whatever you want, do you have manpower to operate the 3 ambulances?
Through the chair to Ms. Clemens, when we're fully staffed at 6 per members, we are 1 short to do the 3rd ambulance because we still have the dispatch operations going on. But as soon as the dispatcher goes in and we are at 6, we'll have all 3 ambulance staffed. Again, you all should know that a lot of our emergencies, we require overtime for recall for coverages and things like that. So, and the other aspect is that another point to your question is that we always have a demand, always have a demand to have 2 ambulances. It seems like we always do. 1 ambulance goes out the door, the 2nd ambulance goes out, and in the last couple of months to the last year, we've been putting all 3 ambulances on the road at the same time. we can't rely on mutual aid. We have to take care of each other. I will say we make $1 million or bring back about $1 million in revenue back to the town every year. I think this ambulance has been bought 3 or 4 times over the 12 years that we've had this ambulance. So I need to make mention on that. The revenue itself the ambulance is definitely needs to be replaced. Honestly, that's where I stand today.
But you didn't answer the question. How many times? I know eventually if and when the dispatch gets done, we'll hopefully be able to have it. But how often during the course of 1 week do you have enough staff on board to run 3 ambulances?
Staff in the station at the time of our regular schedule? Is that your question? I can tell you that we can bring in staff to man that 3rd ambulance. It's two different answers to that. Okay.
I guess you don't want. I understand why you don't want to answer the question. It's okay, but I'm just saying. I was here with the last ambulance. We were told about the revenues and how things would be, and I there's a need in town. I guess I would err on the side of, as I said before at the Capitol meeting, what is absolutely necessary at this moment that can't wait till recertification of free cash in November. So just looking out for the overall budget issues when we're told it could be $1 million or more in a shortfall. So that's the only reason I'm asking the questions is it an immediate? I realize it will take 6 months or 9 months maybe to get it, but I still would, waiting 6 months to order that again, or waiting till November to allocate that cash. It's another big number. It's another concern. That's all. So, thank you.
Councilor Steves.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Paul. 2 quick questions. One is, do you have a rough guess of how often you end up having to go out of town with the ambulances, and how often you end up serving, specifically going to take calls from Radius?
I don't have the access to the computer system here directly in regards to how many times we go to Radius, but I can tell you in the last 3 or 4 months, we do go to Radius probably once a day to pick up emergency calls. There has been an influx of COVID patients there, so yeah, I can guarantee you that the answer to that is at least once a day over the last 3 months, because it is the volume there has increased. So they are considered residents in 911. So that's the way we handle that. The second, for actually your first question, the answer to that would also be in our database, mutual aid. Couple times a week we go out of town to other towns is a rough guess. Sometimes it's more, sometimes we'll go weeks where we don't even go mutual aid with the ambulances.
And I was also thinking, I was actually thinking more in terms of like having to transport somebody to one of the hospitals, say in Worcester or Boston, although mutual aid is relevant too.
So a good majority of the transports we do nowadays from Southridge itself do go to Worcester because of the services that are being reduced at Harrington Hospital. And again, I can go back to a few months back where we're diagnosing heart attacks in the ambulance or in the house. And we cannot bring those patients right to Harrington. They have to go to Worcester. So the paramedic service that was brought on in 2008 has done a great deal of awesome medicine. I support it. I do it myself. The deputy and I are both in the ambulances. We're working on calls. So we are doing more calls to Worcester because the appropriate care facilities are in Worcester because of Harrington, reducing some of their medical expertise. So, I hope that answers that side of the question. So we do go to Worcester a lot more, which in turn ultimately brings in overtime for us because that's the way we have to operate. We have to keep 4 in the station at all times. And as soon as the ambulance goes to Worcester, they're out of service for up to 2 hours sometimes or more, depending on traffic coming back.
And also, do you know how many miles this particular ambulance has on it?
This one has about 97,000 miles on it. The previous ambulance that we just replaced, that was our Medic 3 ambulance, had about the same amount of miles. Actually, I think it had a little less. It had like 93,000 miles, if memory serves me correctly. So mileage and engine hours are right on target for replacement right now.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, comments? I'd just like to state.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilor Nash.
Thank you. I can certainly detect a common thread amongst several councilors and probably most, if not all of us tonight, of being very cautious with spending or not spending. But I look at this, and $357,000 is a lot of money. We all recognize this. I think that it would be a much easier vote for, at least for me, if we were putting that $357,000 into roads to help get longer life out of the vehicles like this. I think voting to make this purchase is going to be my choice. I think rolling the dice isn't an avenue I want to go down. Looking at the future of this community and the risks that we might run should we run into any other preparedness needs, i.e. tornado, other circumstances. Yeah, I think we could look at it and say, yeah, let's get another year or two out of this, but we have the free cash. We are putting money into stabilization. And I think that the need is real. I don't dispute that. So I'll be supporting this this vote tonight for this expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I know it's always a balancing act to try to balance all the needs of the departments and everything. I just look at our EMS system is a very busy system. And yeah, we're replacing a 2007 ambulance that we already put off a year for whatever reason. It was put off a year. And I look at it as, okay, maybe that, you're now going to rotate the oldest ambulance to be your third backup ambulance. I just caution the fact that if an ambulance goes down for whatever reason for a length of time, and we do not replace this ambulance, this town cannot operate on one ambulance. It is too busy. I mean, you look at the, and I thank the two chiefs for putting in their activity that I had asked them for year over year. You look at the call volumes that they do just EMS. They're stretched. They need the equipment to run. And if we could just pick off a shelf and go tomorrow and say, oh, okay, let's wait till November and we can just go and pick it off a shelf and it can be in place in 30 days, great. But when you talk 6 to 8 months, and I think 6 is a conservative number to replace equipment right now, given the fact that a lot of things are shut down, it needs to get in the pipeline so that we can get this ambulance. If we wait till November, okay, that's 6 months from today, or yeah, right, 6 months from today. And then it's 6 to 8 months to build. We're waiting another year for an ambulance that is on its last legs. And OEMS, being in the EMS field, we can't roll the dice like Council Nash said. So I would support this. It is a big number. And I think I said during the capital plan and through the budget process, we know that we have to replace ambulances at least every 4 to 5 years. As a council, we should be working on that capital plan where we're putting $75,000 per year away into an ambulance account. It's just like police cruisers. You got to replace them. You replace them on a 4 to 5 year cycle or whatever it is. It's ridiculous to then have to wait and then come up here and say, oh my God, $357,000. Yeah, it's a big number. But if we had planned appropriately year over year, putting some money away, then you say, okay, it's time to buy the ambulance, and you start all over for the next 4 years. So I support this. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Oh, Councilor Nash, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll indulge me, just one other comment, because I respect the fact that some of us want to perhaps vote no on this, and that's fine. But the comment was made that this isn't the time. I used to think the same way back in 2013 when Chief Normandin wanted and subsequently got a pumper truck, if I remember correctly. I think it was around $500,000. No, I wasn't on council, but I objected to it. I made statements about it. And I look at this here. we always have that excuse. We can always say it's not the right time. We've been in, so many dire, difficult circumstances year over year after year after year. I just think that we need to do things like this to make sure that we are protected for the future. We need to make progress in this community, and maybe that's a little philosophical, but I remain in support of this, and I hope others will reconsider if they were thinking of going against this particular purchase. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Roll call?
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Corona?
No.
Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Javon?
Yes.
Counselor Nolan?
Yes, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Mary.
Time hearing you, Mary.
Oh, is this any better?
Oh, yeah.
That's better, yeah.
Mine was a yes.
Okay. Counselor Marquetti?
No.
Counselor Nash?
Yes.
And Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 16, vote to appropriate $56,440 from free cash to purchase a mower for the Department of Public Works. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Council Dan, motion. Council Nash, second. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there's been a lot of conversation. It's subcommittee on this particular mower. One of the few items where the mower is completely shot, and our DPW director says if we want to mow our fields this year, we need to replace it. I can have the DPW explain more about it, but it's clearly that the mower they have is no longer operable, and that this is a replacement for that.
Madam DPW Director.
Hi, thank you. Yes, this is our wide area mower. So this is our big deck mower that can do a lot of surface area in a quicker time. We have a extraordinary amount of fields, and we always talk about that in the cemetery that we have to mow. If this mower doesn't get replaced, it means that we are scrambling and borrowing mowers from the school department, which as soon as we get into full range summer is not going to be able to be done. We would be missing events for being able to mow. And if when we do have time to mow, we'll be mowing probably with smaller mowers at that point. That will make us incredibly inefficient. And we're going to be scrambling anyways, because this mower also has a lead time. And with the COVID, it has been delayed. They're telling us it could be 90 days or longer, where this is normally an off-the-shelf, more standard off-the-shelf 30-day item. So I would like to get this in the pipeline as soon as possible to hopefully have this during the summer. So we cannot, that we're not going to be running into the issues that we know we're going to have.
Okay. Thank you. Questions? Council Marquetti.
So once again, this is something that I think we need to hold off on because of the problems that we're having this year with our budget, or with revenue coming in. Reading the fine print here again, you can mow. Maybe it takes a little longer, but you can mow. So it's just one of those things that I think because of our revenue shortfall, we're going to have to hold off. That's all. I'm not trying to deny you equipment that you need, but this year I think we need to hold off. Thank you.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Council Manna?
Unless I missed something, I apologize. I had my neighborhood going up with fireworks. Anyways, do we have another mower to do the mowing right now, Heather?
The town does not own another second wide area mower ourselves. We have been lucky in the spring that we've been able to borrow the school departments. But when full grass gets growing really here soon, where we have grass growing a little faster and we have rainy days, there's only certain days you can mow on. So, it's very simple that we could be needing the mower at the same time and not having time to do it. You only have so many hours that you can do this in, given the fact that we have rain and schedules, and it's, they have about 2 days of mowing they have to do a week, and we have a good day ourselves. So with scheduling, it becomes very difficult if we were to just share that mower all year. It really wouldn't work. We would end up having to use our smaller mowers, which take more people to do it with. If we schedule people for doing that, that means we're not doing other things like fixing potholes and fixing catch basins and all the other maintenance that we do in town. So I don't have an infinite number of people in a crew to be able to just send them out to mow grass for 3 days straight.
No, I understand, but you're not completely without a mower, and you're getting interns this year again to help out in the town?
We will still be using the interns to just mow regularly. This is in addition to everything that we have to do with the small mowers. I don't think, and this isn't like going out and mowing your lawns. This is like going out and mowing 100 lawns.
No, I get it. I get it. It's not like my little lawn. I totally get it. And I know that
we need to have the proper equipment to be able to do
like
it.
sides of the roads and stuff. Is that this?
No, this isn't the roadside mower. That's a totally different mower. This is a wide area mower. This is what, picture the mowers that are on the golf courses. This is the mower that has the large deck on the bottom. This isn't a small mower. It's, it can do a larger area all at one time. It's used in the big wide open areas so that we can be efficient. Our smaller mowers are to be used around areas like in the cemetery where you have to get close to the headstones and those types of things where it takes more detail work. This is to cover a large area in our parks where there's big wide open spaces. The baseball fields, softball fields, all the open parks, that's where this is used. And it takes about a day to get around to all of those as it is.
Okay. 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 Thanks for that explanation.
And I will say this, if we delay this price is only going to go up.
No, I agree. We have the free cash now, so I totally agree. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just want to say I certainly understand the determination to try to save as much money as you can, but we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we as a town have residents out there too and taxpayers out there too that are going to ask for services, and if we don't have the equipment to mow the lawns or respond to calls, they're going to say, well, where is all my taxes going? I pay enough in taxes. How come you're not mowing the fields and that? So it's very difficult to try to balance services, needs, and money. And I think we're trying to, I know I am personally trying to balance both. How do we save enough money to cover any shortfalls? How do we balance the tax rate so it's not too much? And how do we continue to provide the necessary services? So they're all tough decisions to make, but that's the way I'm trying to weigh this all out. It's all well and good to say, hey, don't buy the lawnmower. The fields might or may or may not get mowed. The school department, yeah, they have a mower, but they also have a lot more fields too, with the middle school, high school, and all that. So it's not like they used to only have the 3 or the 4 smaller fields. Now they have that big complex up there that they have to maintain as well. So it is a balancing act, and I respect everybody's opinion, but we also have services that we have to provide every day for what the taxpayers do pay for that. So we have to remember that as well. Councilor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, as I stated earlier with the ambulance, and I'll state it again now, the need might be there right now. However, and I'll be repetitive, I don't believe it's the right time until we understand the true shortfall. I don't know if you look at contracting this out, if that's a possibility, until we can figure this out the next 6 months, get us through this summer, and then we can make some decisions then. There's plenty of contractors out there that I'm sure are looking for work. I don't know if you've priced that, but for this time right now, I certainly cannot support this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Heather, just as a question, if you did contract out, that would be a prevailing wage scale, correct? not just a regular
Correct.
landscaping contract, right?
Correct.
It is prevailing wage, correct?
Yes.
So just want to make sure that people understand that it's not just like
And
hiring a landscaper to mow your lawn.
just to
Which
answer your
is still,
question,
I'm sure it's still, I'm sure that wage is still less than spending the almost $400,000 on a mower.
400,000? No, 56,000.
Yeah.
$56,000. Go ahead, Councilor Catrona.
I'm sorry, my
Go
mistake.
ahead.
It's just getting late. I'm sure the cost is less. That was my only point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick question to you to add there. Did you look at other alternatives for actually buying a mower? I mean, he suggested the idea of contracting. I know that there are some communities, this is going to sound weird, some communities actually seek out things like goats and sheep to do it. And there are, and I don't know if what other alternatives might exist. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
This isn't the roadside mower. This is not what we're talking about. This is the mower for the field. So using goats would not be a viable option. I have not costed it out. It's also a union item. So if we had to do anything and we tried to put that out, we'd have to negotiate with the unions. So, it's a little bit more complicated than just saying, I'm going to contract this out, because it is part of their regular services. I applaud your forward thinking of the goats, and it has been thought of in different areas of towns for other things, but not for doing the actual fields themselves. What we did do is we looked at multiple mowers here originally to replace in kind with the one that we had. The mower that we have is over $75,000. So by costing out and looking at different options and demoing different mowers, we were able to get that cost down, $20,000 from what if we went with a Toro, which is more, to use other people have said to me, Cadillac type mower. What we're looking at is a John Deere mower, much more affordable, and was having very good rates on what they had for under the state contracts.
And do you have a rough idea of how long this is likely to last?
Well, the one that we're replacing is from 2004. So I would hope that we could get another, 16 years out of it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Heather, I appreciate your response to Councilor Steve's questions. While mine is not quite in the same vein, it does relate to alternatives. I appreciate what you're saying about comparing to Toro and a $18,000 to $20,000 difference in price. And if this is off the state list, then, I wonder, John Deere is actually Cadillac in my mind. That's what I keep in my backyard. Why couldn't we look at something compromise here and see if there isn't something else that's suitable for a little bit less? 10 grand goes a long way.
We looked, we really couldn't find anything cheaper. We looked at a couple different ones. And we couldn't even find other ones that had what we needed. This has to be roadworthy so that we can drive it down the road, because that's how it gets in between. So you start to get very limited there in what you're looking at.
Okay.
So basically, this gets registered and everything. This literally even has a plate, the small tractor.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna. Yes. Counselor Marquetti,
No.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steve,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Catrona.
No.
Motion carries. Correct. What was that vote?
Yeah, it was 6-2.
The 4-3? 6-2, okay, thank you.
Go.
My computer's kind of slowing up here a little bit, so. Item 17, vote to appropriate $434,432,000 from free cash for the FY.
I think it was a 6-3
Yeah,
vote.
go ahead. Well, there's only 8 of us, so
I'm sorry, a 5-3 vote. Yeah.
5-3 vote, I believe, yeah, right.
I thought
Council
There was clarification on that.
Council Manna, no.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
Council Manna, no. Council
I
Marquetti,
voted
no.
yes.
Council Catrona, no.
Excuse me, no.
Oh,
I
okay, you
voted
did?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
I have,
Didn't you?
All right, I thought I heard. Okay, I thought I heard no in there too, but
Mary,
my computer was still.
can you
6-2,
read that,
correct?
please?
Read the votes again, please.
yeah, I can read the votes. So I had Counselor Adams as a yes, Counselor Catrona as a no, Counselor Daniel, yes, Counselor Jovan, yes, Counselor Manna, yes, Counselor Marquetti, no, Counselor Nash, yes, and Counselor Steves, yes.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Item 17, vote to appropriate $434,432,000 from free cash for the FY 2021 capital budget. Police, 2 new police vehicles for $100,000, 6 public safety grade portable radios for $16,000. Information technology upgrades, $20,000. Streets and sidewalks additional funding for the TIP project, $125,000. To Southridge Public Schools, roofing immediate repairs at various school buildings, $60,000. Fire alarm upgrades at various school buildings, $10,000. Lease purchase of 2 vehicles, which is the second year of the lease of $43,432. Financial system upgrade, additional funding, $60,000. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second? Motion by Councilor Daniel, second by Councilor Manna. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let's just be clear here because I want to make sure citizens understand. We originally, when we set up the free cash distribution, it was something like $1,400,000. Myself and all the department heads, including the finance director, went through all the accounts and we set up what we thought were the absolute priorities of what we really needed to purchase. And when we get to item 18, you'll see $640,000 of money we had intended to spend, but decided not to put in stabilization. So just want the public to understand that we really did make some very serious decisions in terms of my department heads, myself and the finance director. The items you listed, Mr. Chairman, the 2 new police vehicles, I think we all understand we've had a program over the last, at least the 5 years I've been here, to replace 2 vehicles every year to keep our fleet in very good shape so that when there is a police call, you have police cars that can respond appropriately. And we want to keep a long-term program to make sure we replace them in a logical way. A lot of cases, a lot of argument can be made for doing 3 a year instead of 2. But years ago, we basically settled on 2. The public safety grade radios, I think this is something that's been a program to get all the police officers up with a good quality radio so they can respond to emergencies and be able to talk back and forth among themselves. The information technology upgrade, our IT director has been working on this. He's trying to upgrade all the equipment and to do it in a regional timeline. This is his upgrade. It's a planned upgrade that he needs to do. We need to keep our technology fresh. Obviously, we store all the data of the town, everything from financial records, DPW records on our technology. We need to make sure that the technology is working and serves the needs of the community. The streets and sidewalks, I think we all understand. We've been working on the Hook Street project. This is the additional funding we need to get the state grant money for the Hook Street project and keep moving that project forward. It's state money, but I think it's actually federal pass-through money. But that 125 is less than what the DPW director originally asked for. We asked her to go in and reevaluate and look at that project, work with engineers, and see if there was money we didn't have to spend in this year. So there was a reduction in that. The school system, I really want to thank them. As you recall, they asked for a significant amount more than this. They used some savings they had from their transportation budget as it relates to the school buses. Obviously, kids aren't in school. They're not using the school buses like they would be. The contracts were renegotiated on a kind of a regional level, and they found $120,000 to do technology. So they reduced the amount of money we would have asked for from free cash. So I'll let the school speak to the importance of these issues. Obviously, roofs critical. You want to make sure they don't leak, and the disclosure they have a strong closure around the buildings. Fire alarms, obviously very important in schools. We had already agreed in last year to do lease purchase of 2 vehicles. I think this is the second year of the lease, so that's moving forward. The last one, Mr. Chairman, is an issue that our finance director, our treasurer, our IT director worked very hard on, the financial system upgrade. This would finish off that system and make sure that we do the financial upgrade and complete that project. That kind of sums it all up. These are fiscal year 21 appropriations. So this money will not be spent until after July 1st. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Discussion? Comments, Councilor Marquetti?
Well, it's no surprise, once again, like I said, because of revenue, shortfall in revenue this year, we just don't know what's going on, what's going to happen, and I think we just need to hold off, that's all. I'm looking at all these funds here tonight, all these last 4, and the next agenda item. You're taking $1.5 million out of free cash, about almost $1.5 million out of free cash. But if we propose to do that to try and balance the budget to give the taxpayers a break, well, no, we can't do that. But we can spend all the money on things that you want. And all I'm saying is that, and I think Mr. Councilor Control agrees with me. All I'm saying is take this money right now, put it in stabilization, and then when we need the money, if an emergency happens, okay, then we will use the money. But 2 new police cars, when you're just telling me that it's just a plan that you have to use the money on new police cars every year. You're not telling me that the police cars have broken down or their engines are shot or anything else. You're just telling me this is your plan to replace 2 new police cars every year. Well, how about a plan to replace a road every year? That would be nice. Could replace 1 road every year, but we can't do that. So all we're saying is this: because of the shortfall we're having this year, we want to give the taxpayers a break because they're going to have a hard time paying their taxes this year. We need to move this money, put this money into stabilization, and then use it when it's absolutely needed, but hold off for now. I just want to say one more thing. I'm not opposed to all the things on here, but you've lumped it all into one agenda. So I'm going to have to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I support this. When you talk about replacing the 2 police vehicles, well, that came out of recommendation from an audit that was done on taxpayer money. And, we're not even, I don't even think, we're doing things in that audit that we were told to do. I don't know if you know the history on that audit, but that would be like a couple hours in itself just to explain. Yeah, according to the audit, we should actually be up to 40 full-time police officers. We don't even have that. So I don't think our police department's fully staffed. And as far as their police vehicles go, there's more wear and tear on their police vehicles than, on our vehicles. So I totally support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clements?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to bring up the same thing that I did with the ambulance, and that is in regard to the police vehicles. And I have been a longtime supporter of the 2 new vehicles. Absolutely. There was a time there was only 1 vehicle, but it would be for me not to make as a citizen, as a taxpayer, and as somebody who's concerned about this budget and the implications of not keeping enough put aside, I would suggest that be one of the items that could wait till the fall. I'm not saying that the police shouldn't have their 2 new vehicles to replace older vehicles. We've seen from our Chief Woodson many times we've always asked for him to keep a full inventory of the vehicles and how they're swapping out and how many hours and which ones are in disrepair. Absolutely. A great job has been done with that. However, in this time, $100,000 is a lot of money. And why can't it just be put into stabilization with some of the other money and wait until the fall, November, when free cash is recertified, and then purchase a couple of new vehicles? And if we can't afford them, then it's 1 year pushed. It's no different, like I was talking with the ambulance. If you can't afford them come November, you can't afford them now. You can put it in there and you can adjust that budget. Council can adjust a budget down the road, but once you buy those cars, you own them. Once you buy the ambulance, you own it. These are just big ticket items that I think could wait till November. And thank you for listening.
Chief Woodson?
Yeah, Council, Mr. Chairman, through you, if I can quickly. More importantly than any of that, I just want to let Council Manna know that the firework caper has been solved. We just caught the kid, and we're charging him accordingly. So I heard your complaint, and we addressed it. And just to kind of circle back to that audit back in 2013, they had suggested we purchase at least 2 cars. And again, not to rehash all these old things, a department my size should be purchasing at least 3 every year. I respect the situation the town's in. I always do, which is why I don't ask for 3, even when there's no pandemic. So I get that and I respect that. But you got to understand the industry standard for police vehicles, 50,000 miles, take it off the street. We have departments around us that send their vehicles to auction with 50 or 60,000 miles on them. I'm fortunate, the town's fortunate, we have a great mechanic. He keeps our vehicles on the road to about 100,000 miles where the wheels are literally falling off. 100,000 miles of driving on a police vehicle is about 300,000 engine hours on a regular vehicle that a civilian would drive. And as far as talking about the fleet falling apart, I'm not saying that, but just this weekend, and it couldn't have happened at a better time, we had an engine blow up on one of our cars. We had to tow it back, have it towed back to the police station. It's now out of service. I'm going to be coming to council on June 8th for several transfers. Auto repairs are a big portion of that. I think it's either $5,000 or $10,000 more than I'm going to need to do repairs on my existing fleet. If we order now or July 1st, I'm not getting these vehicles till April because Ford, like the fire chief alluded to earlier, they're behind. MHQ, our vendor where we buy our cars from, they're behind. Everybody's buying police cars throughout the Commonwealth. Everybody's behind. So if I don't order them, if this gets pushed off to November, I might not get these till the following fiscal year. And again, I respect the fact of what's going on in the community, but our fleet is not there's not a lot of golden chariots out there that our guys are driving around. This is not going to be my vehicle. It's not going to be an administrative vehicle. These are getting painted black and white going right into the fleet to be used by the men and women that protect all of us every day. So I just think it's for them not to have equipment that functions and works accordingly. We went several years with previous councils without buying any vehicles. And that's why we're so far behind still, even since Mr. San Angelo got here and the councils who are present. You support every year, we buy 2 cars, but we're still playing catch up. You have to keep doing it. It's an essential need for the community, for essential employees. I don't know how else I can package it or how much clearer I can be. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Chief. Anything further on this? Councilor Nash, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council Marquetti kind of beat me to the punch. When I looked at this particular agenda item, perhaps I could have reached out in advance to ask for it to be separated. I don't like seeing everything all lumped in. There are several different departments and items here that I think probably should be voted on individually, including the police vehicles. Personally, I'd like to know for all and put this to an end, that the financial system upgrades aren't going to cost us any more money. And I give a lot of credit to Karen in particular, who has worked her absolute hardest to try to make this transition go smoothly along with the school department. I know that there's a combined effort here, but I was concerned about this 2+ years ago when this came. I didn't think we were prepared. Not that I have any particular insight, but wasn't too long ago, maybe a year ago, they had to come back and ask for some additional funding to support some of these, the training or the staff from the vendor to be here to support us. Then, I look at this here and this just keeps adding up. We're over 500,000, something along that line for software. Is this the end of it? I'd really like to know. So it would be my preference to vote on these individually. I'm not ready to make a motion to do so, but I'd love to see if there's consensus that we could break these out before I do it. Thank you.
Dang. Ms. Hanroyce?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that anything on here, any of these line items could be amended. We can go through them and do them one by one. It's just that, usually we do like a capital budget or whatever, but we can do them separately if that's what the council would like to do.
Okay.
I think you would
Any
have to make
further
a motion
questions?
to split it. Sorry.
No. Go ahead, Councilor Marquetti.
I think you would have to make a motion to split this up, and what you can do according to Robert's rules. You can split up a agenda item.
You can do anything to an agenda item, Councilor Marquetti. Whatever council wants to do, they can do whatever they want to an agenda item, as long as it fits the rules. So,
Okay.
Well versed in Robert's rules, I do understand that. So, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I wasn't getting where I wanted to with this. I was hoping to have an explanation on why these are all lumped into one item.
Karen, did you just want to elaborate on what you said? I think you said that we do this usually on the FY21 capital line. I know we did it last year. I don't know if that's how it's been years past, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's how we usually do it. We package them as a capital budget. The only reason why the other two items were separate is because we wanted to order them before the July 1st. So we didn't want to consider them FY21 capital. But we have made changes before. We funded things from different accounts, so we can absolutely make change. We could leave it the way it is, and as one agenda item, but you could change any of the amounts and then the totals, and then vote on it that way.
Okay, Councilor Nash.
I'll make a motion to amend this item number 17 to be a vote to appropriate $334,432 from free cash for the fiscal year 2021 capital budget, to leave all items remaining as listed, save for the two new police vehicles at $100,000 for a separate vote.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend it to 334,432 and leave the police cruisers, split the police cruisers out. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Right, so I have a motion and a second. Discussion on the amendment. Councilor Diana.
Thank you. And I respect the fact that you want to make this amendment, but I mean, if you want it separate, why don't we just do line item by line item instead of separating just the police vehicles? It's just separate everything. I just don't understand why it's just the police vehicles and not everything. I mean, because yeah.
Okay, Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, certainly. I certainly would have no objection should my motion to amend not pass to someone making such an amendment or amending my amendment. I would just like to see the two new police vehicles voted on separately, given the conversation that we've had tonight and the history that we've had with this. It seems to come up every year. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we have an amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Which is to, I believe, Councilor Nash, if I'm correct, it would be vote to appropriate the 334,432 and remove the two police cruisers from this line item. Is that correct? Okay, and then we would take everything else outside of the $100,000 for the cruisers. That's your intent, correct?
That is my intention with a subsequent motion to add an agenda item.
Okay. All right. So is there any further discussion on the amendment? Which is to, go ahead, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, if the council were to vote down the expenditure of the two police vehicles, is the intention that money would then go into stabilization? What would happen to those funds if you were to vote it down? Because that's not really in the amendment. I'm just curious if the intention is to put more money in stabilization, which we've had a lot of conversation about.
I think if I'm understanding Councilor Nash correctly, he just wants to remove the two police cruisers to have a separate agenda item to discuss that. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are, and I've
Correct.
made no allusion to which direction I'd be voting. Thank you.
Oh, no, I agree. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So it's, if I could entertain maybe a friendly amendment to yours, if you could, Council Nash. Vote to amend that to the 334, 432 from free cash for FY 2021 and add an agenda item 17A to discuss the 2 new police cruisers. Would that be appropriate if that's your intent?
That absolutely works instead of adding an agenda item after. Yeah, certainly. I'm okay with that.
Okay, because I think your intent is to have a discussion on both, correct?
I'm okay with that. It's second too.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay. So roll, go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, even without an amendment, we can have a discussion on each and every single line item in this on agenda item number 17. I mean, there's no rules against that, but I don't feel comfortable. I mean, you're separating the police cruisers and you're not separating anything else. Why don't we just separate it all? That's all. I'm a little confused.
Yep. So there is an amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Are we all clear what we're voting on? Okay, roll call.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
No.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
and Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Okay. So the 2 police cruisers will be 17A. And now the discussion is vote to appropriate 334, 432 from free cash for the FY 2021 capital budget. Now, is there further discussion on that? Councilor Nash? Did you have a question? No, I see you light green. Councilor Marquetti?
I'm still opposed to this because I still think it's too much and I can't afford it. There are
Okay.
some things that I'm okay with, but not all of them. So thank you.
Okay. Councilman?
I think the schools, that what we're asking for the schools should be separate. I think it all should be separate. So that's all.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Manna,
Yes, with reservations.
Counselor Marquetti,
No.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
and Counselor Jovan.
Yes. Okay. Item 17A, vote to appropriate $100,000 from free cash for the FY 2021 capital budget for the police department, 2 new police vehicles. Is there a motion on that?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Discussion? Chief Woodson, did you have something?
But
you all set?
Councilor,
Sure.
through you, Mr. Chair, you know, I've already spoken my piece on this.
Okay, no, I just saw you light green. I want to make sure if you needed to elaborate something. Councilman?
I'm just gonna, I fully support this because we cannot afford not to afford, to support this with the vehicles and stuff. So, I mean, it's our safety. So that's all.
All right. Councilor Nash?
Thank you. I too support this. And I think Items like this need to be a matter of record with individual votes and itemized as such every single time, every single year. I have no problem with supporting this. I agree with Councilor Manna. This is an extremely important step that we need to continue taking year after year. Yeah, maybe sometimes things seem like they're too tight to be having these sorts of discussions to spend money on police cruisers. But we sure as heck don't want to be the ones that don't get the response because the car's broken down and we don't have a vehicle available. So fully support.
Thank you, Councilor Nash. Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just thinking that we were kind of talking about, I thought I heard somebody mention this earlier, about the idea of maybe we got to take this and split it so that we get one now and we push another one till like October or something. Just as an idea.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Marquetti?
Like I said before, you know, it's just a matter of what we can afford this year. Yes, I agree. You want to provide services to the residents. One of the councilors says, you know, we're cutting, but we have to also pay for services. But this year, there's just a question of we may not be able to afford some of these services this year. There's no way to pay for some of these services. So I have to agree with Councilor Catrona. We need to put this money into stabilization this year. Thank you.
Thank you. I just know, and I've said this before in budgets, that this should not even be coming out of free cash. This should be a standard line item in the operating budget. The report was clear. You need 2 police cruisers. Every year you need 2 police cruisers. We should be working to try to get that into the operating budget and leave it there. And not when, hey, okay, because what happened before, oh, we can't afford it, so we took one out. Oh, now's not the right time to buy it this year. Take it out again. And then you come back and it's a free cash question all the time. And I think every year you're going to have the question or you're going to have the comment, we can't afford it. And I respect that. I think we're putting it together, again, good chunk of $640,000 into stabilization. And in 2 weeks, we'll have a conversation about the existing capital accounts that we would have to make some questions to move, probably, hopefully another good chunk of money to maybe get up to the $1 million to try to move that over to stabilization. And that would, be a good number given the fact that we have the other 3.5 in stabilization right now and 4 million in the other accounts. So again, it's a balancing act. So I support this. Any further discussion? Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. Just to make a quick statement again, as I've stated all night, to be repetitive, I don't doubt the needs. Police, fire, I've supported them since I became a councilor. We've added policemen, firemen, equipment for both. My own opinion, I just don't think right now is the right time until we understand the shortfall. And I think this money should be going to stabilization until we know those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Nash, or you all set?
Just getting ready for the vote. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Manna?
Yes.
Councilor Marquetti?
No.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
Councilor Steve?
Yeah.
Councilor Adam?
Yes.
Councilor Catrona?
No.
Councilor Daniel?
Yes.
And Councilor Jovan?
Yes. Item 18, vote to appropriate $640,837 from free cash to the stabilization fund. Is there a motion?
So
moved.
Second.
Discussion? I think we all know what's going over to stabilization, Mr. Town Manager. I don't think you need to explain it.
Okay.
Unless you have something drastic that you want to add. I don't know. I mean, we talked to this to death about moving money to stabilization. Every council, a lot of councils here, councils have mentioned moving to stabilization. I don't know what more you can add, but go ahead. It's just getting late. It's 11 o'clock. we've been going at it 5 hours. I'd like to try to wrap this up, but unless there's something different you want to add to that.
Just want to say, recognize that this money is set aside as stabilization to deal with a 2020 deficit if one arises. That's all.
Well, I would just like to add, it would probably go to 2021 too, if needed, not just specific to 2020. I would think that we'd have to look at that money as well to 2021 if so there was a deficit there too.
Yeah, you're correct. If 2020 is less, you'd be correct.
Yeah. So, any further discussion? Councilor Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I'd just like to make a comment that it is my understanding that since we're voting to appropriate the remaining $640,837 from free cash to stabilization, that we will have a conversation with this sitting council about a transfer to cover the expenses that would be associated with the animal control shelter. And that is why I will support this. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Nash, that will be forthcoming on the closeout capital accounts that we're going to talk about. So that will be at the next meeting. That I think that's the intent, to bring that up when we have that discussion. Am I correct, Mr. Town Manager?
Actually, no, Mr. Chairman. We actually talked about taking money out of the demolition property, destroying property, not out of those capital accounts. But that is a decision that could be made too. But we talked about the money for, tearing down buildings, that there's extra money in there. And that was what we were talking about using for the animal control shelter.
Yeah, correct. Out of capital accounts that are still there. The list of capital accounts, that's what I meant, not the closeout.
Yeah. Okay.
List of capital accounts. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Marquetti,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Steves,
Yes.
Councilor Adams,
Yes.
Councilor Catrona,
Yes.
Councilor Daniel,
Yes.
Councilor Jovan,
Yes.
and Councilor Manna.
Yes.
Item 19, vote to adopt the town manager's 6-year capital plan for FY 2021 to FY 2026. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion. Motion by Council Daniel, second by Council Adams. Any discussion on adoption of this plan? We've had the public hearing. We discussed it at Capitol. Anything further? It's an ongoing working document, so I'm sure there'll be more work to do next year and next year's council as well. Seeing no further discussion, roll call.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Steves,
Yes.
Councilor Adams,
Yes.
Councilor Catrona,
No.
Councilor Daniel,
Yes.
Councilor Jovan,
Yes.
Councilor Manna,
Yes.
and Councilor Marquetti.
No.
Item 20, vote to appropriate $387,500 from sewer retained earnings for the FY 2021 capital budget. Collection system upgrades and tip project area engineering, $87,500. Chlorine contact chamber and reclaimed water system upgrades, $300,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Discussion. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think we all recognize it. Our DPW is director is the excellent. These next number of votes, I would call on the DPW director to go on with us. Thank you.
Heather?
Good evening. So this would be coming out of the sewer retained earnings account, as it states. The tip area project engineering, after discussing it and looking at some of the upgrades that needs to be done in the area for the tip project, there was some benefits of incorporating the water and sewer and some requirements to incorporate the water and sewer modifications right in with the tip project. So we're going to go ahead and you will be seeing a contract amendment with VHB to add the water and sewer to their contracts, in addition to fund the 75% and 100% design. That's what the money that we've appropriated and the money that we already have appropriated will cover with this 2 water and sewer items. Part of the reason was there is a major grade change in the area that the new rotary is going, and we wouldn't be able to make the water main and sewer modifications without doing the road work all at the same time. It would be very difficult. The lines would get very deep and would really be very cost prohibitive. By doing it together with the project, it can be all done at the same time, less disruption to the whole area. Instead of having 2 years of construction, well, 2 separate construction seasons, hopefully we can get it done in one. In addition, you have the chlorine contact chamber and reclaimed water system upgrades. It's one of the areas in our wastewater treatment plant that we actually have some issues with maintaining compliance with our permit. There's some operational issues that happen there at the wastewater treatment plant, that we need to look at the controls and how they operate together so that we don't violate our permit.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, discussion? Councilor Catrona, you all set? I saw your hand go up. You all set? Or are you just scratching your head?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steve,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Catrona,
No,
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
and Counselor Marquetti.
No.
Carries. Item 21, vote to appropriate $162,500 from Water Stabilization Fund for the FY 2021 capital budget. Gatehouse roof replacement, $75,000 realigned, or is it realigned engineering for water main replacement on Hamilton?
Yeah,
Street from
there should be
Main?
a space there.
Okay. From Main to 85 Hamilton and Central Street, from Main Street to Hook Street with tip design for area, $87,500.
So
2/3
moved.
roll call vote is required. Motion a second. Any second?
Second.
I have a second. Thank you, Council Steves. Heather, go ahead.
So our gatehouses, you'll be hearing some more of this because we actually have one that will be coming to you probably June 8th for approved contract, where we're going to be able to replace one of the roofs in this year's budget. It was in this year's water budget already. There's multiple of these gatehouses in the reservoir area that the roofs are way beyond their useful life. They have failed. They're failing. We need to keep the infrastructure up and running and operating. So we're looking to replace these roofs. The 75 will hopefully get us 2 additional roofs. I think there's 4 total to be done. They're a little tricky because of where they're located. Some of them literally sit right on the edge of the water. And if any of you are familiar with roofing projects, they're notoriously a little messy sometimes, so they have to take special precaution. In addition, some of these have asbestos roofs, so we need to keep them and take them off very carefully. So they will be bid, designed, put out as bid projects.
Thank you, Council Manor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Blakely. You said hopefully $75,000 will be enough. Do you think it's going to go over, or do you think it'll be under? Do you have quotes?
We're going to do them singly, one at a time. So we'll do 75. We'll bid the first one out and see where we get, and then if we can bid another one out and get it under the 75, we will. We were lucky. The one that just came in is under what we expected. Came in at like 16 something. I just saw the prices, but it's the easiest one to do. So roofs are a little interesting, especially when they're small like this. And with the trickiness of having asbestos and everything else, we will hope. We're not planning to do all of them. This is just we'll start. And if we have to appropriate more money, we'll find more money to appropriate to it.
Thank you.
We're going to pick them off one at a time.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna.
Yes, you still sound far away, Mary.
I don't know why I'm like right next to the speaker.
Oh, you sound better now. That's better.
Counselor Marquetti,
No,
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
By my count, that's 6 votes yes, 2 votes no, 2/3 has been attained. Ordered, number 22, ordered that $500,000 is appropriated to collection system upgrades, West Street sewer main replacement engineering. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the town manager, is authorized to borrow $500,000 under Chapter 44 of the general laws or pursuant to any other enabling authority to issue bonds or notes thereof. Therefore, any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by the vote, less any such premium applied to this payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of cost approved by this vote in accordance with the Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such cost by a like amount. 2/3 roll call vote is required. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Heather?
Yep, this is part of, I think you're all aware, with the CDBG, we are looking to redo West Street next year. So we're preparing, we need to complete the engineering for the sewer. We know we have a sewer problem there. We have a pipe at the top of West Street, the area of West Street School, that we know is crushed and compromised. It's a major replacement of this section of pipe, but we need to get that done in conjunction with the CDBG project for West Street.
Discussion? Any questions? Councilor Marquetti?
excuse me. My questions are, excuse me, it's very dry in the house. My questions will pertain to the next 3 agenda items. I just wanted to know how long before this bond would mature?
I'm going to answer what I believe we would take it out. I believe it would be a 20-year bond, but Melissa probably could assist me more in that.
Melissa?
Is it, these are the sewer bonds, right? The sewer and water mains?
Correct.
Yeah, so typically they're 20-year bonds. But depending on sort of the pace of the project, sometimes depending on how Heather does things, sometimes we borrow for a shorter period of time while she does the first phase of the project, and then a 5-year for maybe half of the project, and then another 5 years for the second half of the project, if the project is moving that fast and we can fit it in her enterprise budget. But that's just what we'll look at when it comes time to actually start the construction. She has her bid and her timeline, but no more than 20 years. And are these, Heather, are these eligible for the MWPAT loans?
The SRF loans?
Yeah.
No. Well, they could be, but we weren't applying for an SRF loan in this case.
Okay.
I could continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
And what would be the interest on these payments? If you know offhand.
We don't know. So when we go out to borrow money, it really depends on the market. So, if we went out today, we might get a good interest rate given the market, but a year from now, it could be better, it could be higher. It really just depends on what's happening in the economy and what U.S. government bonds are selling for.
And who would be purchasing these bonds?
They're sort of auctioned in a way. So when we put out a bond note sale, it's advertised and then bid on by bankers, and we evaluate the offers and rates to the best. To see whoever gives us the best rate is who we go with.
And their commission? Do you know what their commission would be?
I'm sorry?
You know what their commission would be?
The big banks, we don't pay
They're
them.
commissioned for selling the bonds.
Our bond advisor, I don't know it off the top of my head, but we usually know it before we go out.
All right. But I'm okay with these. I think, bonds are a good idea for purchases for long-lasting operations. So I don't have a problem with it. I just were some questions that I had, and it pertains to all of these. So thank you.
So I will say that typically in the last number of years, we don't actually pay the closing costs of a loan. We get a premium that pays a lot of our issuance costs. And that's part of the analysis that's done when we evaluate the blended rate is what it's called. They offer us a 3% rate with $100,000 back, or I'm making up numbers here, but.
All right, thank you.
All set? Thank you. Good questions, Counselor. And never thought of those questions, so that's good information. And again, these are the road repairs that we're doing in different targeted areas, so it's smart to do these projects at the same time. So I appreciate you coordinating that with that, Heather, and to improve those areas, along with our economic development and CDBG. Any further discussion? Again, this is a 2/3 vote. And none, roll call.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
and Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Unanimous of all present. Item 23, ordered that $2 million is appropriated to sewer headwork project that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer with the approval of the town manager is authorized to borrow $2 million under Chapter 44 of the general laws or pursuant to any other enabling authority and to issue bonds or notes therefore. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. 2/3 roll call vote required. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilor Nash moved it. Councilor Mano second. Heather, go ahead.
Okay, so as you are aware, we have just or almost are in the final stages of completing our bio tower project. The bio tower sits after the headworks. In completing the bio tower project, we realized many issues with our headworks, some of which we've known and we're working through, and then others that we were not aware of. One of the big issues that we have is the amount of material that we don't want, Q-tips, plastics, things of that nature that are getting past our headworks, especially in high flows. Our headwork is not set up to handle filtering these items out like we would hope under high flow conditions, which is affecting the operation of the bio towers themselves. So our headworks, there have been many items, smaller items to fix doors, fix floors, look at heating systems. But when I looked at it overall, it was very clear that we had to look at this as an overall problem and address the headworks as one big building itself. So this is the next large project at the sewer plant, I guess you could say, is upgrading our headworks, improving the efficiency of the headworks as far as what it's doing for treatment, and also addressing the infrastructure, the building itself, the building envelope that it's in, from a heating, roofing, doors, entrance standpoint. The whole building is very deteriorated. As the people who have been there can attest, it is one of our most odoriferous areas in the wastewater treatment plant. It's not a location you want to spend a lot of time in. So this upgrade will also be looking at odor control with our grit removal, and hoping that we can incorporate the whole project in there for this building, and making sure we have odor control on that. It is where the primary raw sewage comes into the plant. and the larger particles and solids get removed from the wastewater. So it's a very important part of the plant and components of the plant, and addressing our high flow issues and lack of adequate treatment during those conditions is primary why we have to move this forward at this time. And I will say that this may be still qualifying for our SRF loan for the biotowers because it's a pre-treatment step to that. In speaking with our our DEP rep who oversees the SRF projects, the additional money that was already voted, 3.2 million, I believe, which I think we've used 1.6 or 1.8 in the original project, could be eligible to offset costs of this project. We have to have some more discussions with them and do some more paperwork, but that would be an option that we could look at with this for funding some of this $2 million. Right now, this is just an estimate of what the cost of the project. No really cost estimate has been done because no hard engineering. It's basically in the concept stage. We know what needs to be done.
Thank you. Any further discussion? None, roll call.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Unanimous, all present. 24, ordered that $1 million is appropriated to Main Street water main replacement, that to meet this appropriation, treasurer for the approval of the town manager is authorized to borrow $1 million under Chapter 44 of the general laws or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes therefore, any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. 2/3 roll call vote is required. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Councilor Steves moved it. Councilor Nash, second. Heather? I know this is the Main Street project. So.
This is the money to replace the water main on Main Street from South Street to Everett Street. Some of you may be aware, well, we've undergone the design of this project with CDBG funds for the Main Street replacement. While reviewing the project originally, we thought we might be able to just replace the valves. After looking at some of the issues that we have and the number of valves that we have, because there are actually 2 mains that go down Main Street instead of 1. And the condition of one of those mains is probably causes more water quality problems than it actually gives us any assistance. We voted to have the engineers design a new water main. This would be for the construction of the water main itself. And I can say that the good news is they are in the process of being ready to submit to me the 90% plans for review. We're very close to putting that project out to bid. So that's the good news. And the also good news is their estimate was right around their 1 million that I have in here. So I guess I guessed all right. So little years of experience helped there.
There you go. Very good. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Manna,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous, all present. Okay, thank you all for being here tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have a meeting Monday night, 7 p.m. Another special town council meeting with only two agenda items. So they could be a little bit lengthy, but not too bad. We'll have a presentation and then a CDBG for grant opportunity for micro businesses that will be coming forward. That's time sensitive, so that's why I got added to that agenda. Before we entertain a motion to adjourn, I just want to thank Southridge Cable TV because they've been here from 6 p.m. to 11:25 p.m. along with us. So thank you very much for being here and getting this out to the townspeople as we move forward. If there's anything further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. There's a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
Counselor Matt?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yeah.
Counselor
Coming
Adams? Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
And Counselor Jovan?
No. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night all.